doing good. I just had a simple question about the event that's happening on February 25th, the Policy Symposium. What is that?
Oh, the Policy Symposium. That's a great event. Think of it this way. It's like a conference where undergraduate social work students from all over New Jersey come together to talk about social policies. This year, the title is Democracy in Crisis. And we've got these fantastic speakers that will be coming and students who will be able to present posters. And we also will be getting credit for this, extra credit in our classes, and field internship credit as well. So it's an event you don't want to miss.
I hear extra credit and I hear field hours. I'll be there.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you. See you on the 25th. Make sure you register on the link that we're going to show right now.
I got you.
All right. Bye-bye. Hello, everybody. My name is Dwayne Battle. I am an associate teaching professor at Rutgers School of Social Work. And I'm also the director for the undergraduate program, both in Camden and on the New Brunswick campus as well. And so I'm delighted that we are able to host this year's Policy Symposium, which is sponsored by the New Jersey Baccalaureate Social Work Education Association here in New Jersey. Let me just get started by saying that this is being recorded, and so we want you to know that we are recording this event. At the end of our symposium, somewhere around 1 p.m., we will have a survey, and that survey will allow you to rate what we've attempted to create here today, give us some real good feedback. But it also will be the gateway to your certificates, certificate of completion for those of you who stayed throughout the day. It will also allow those who are presenting today in terms of our different sessions to get recognition for their presentations. Specifically, students who are presenting posters, they will receive a certificate for that. And then for all of those of you who want CE hours, our continuing education department is providing four free CE hours for this event. And so when you participate at the end, we have your information. You will be contacted afterwards to get those CE hours. Also, we want you to know that we have the closed captioning here. So that is available. If you want to just focus on the speakers, then you can certainly use the resources through Zoom to tool in on the speaker view. And I think that's just about it in terms of the housekeeping. Oh, one other thing. We've tried to think of everything for you. And so we wanted to make sure that the refreshments and the restrooms are closely situated where you are. So you can find them in your own homes or down the hall from where you're working. And I would imagine that some are probably driving through right now at your favorite place where you get your morning beverage. So get situated, get out of the drive-through line, and get to a place where you can enjoy this symposium. Well, we're going to ask one of our colleagues, Dr. Leda Nepomniachtchi, to give us opening remarks to set the stage for today's event. And so we're asking for Dr. Nepomniachtchi to come now.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many faces. I'm so happy that I got asked to participate and just say a few words, and I'm honored to be here amongst our speakers and to participate with all of you. So I just have a couple of things to say. I mean, these speakers today are going to be amazing, so I can't say much, but I just want to say a couple things, right? So just throw out some things for us to think about as we go through the day. First, I want to make the case, people are like, well, is democracy really in crisis? And I want to say, yeah, it is. and we should be incredibly worried, right? The second thing I want to say is that social workers are incredibly important in in resisting this situation and in fighting. And I'll make just like 3 points, right, about why I think that's the case. And so let me just start. Is democracy in crisis? Yes, it is. And it's a crisis like we have not seen for many, many years. And I would like to make the case that we haven't seen something like this probably since the Reconstruction days, right? And the end of Reconstruction, where one group of people was given rights and then taken away because they actually used those rights, right? And there's a very similar story that can be told. African-American voters have changed this country over these years, and they have shown incredible strength, right? Incredible power. We have an African-American senator from Georgia, who actually was the person who made the Senate controlled, well, not controlled, sort of controlled, right? Even split for the Democrats. That made people who don't want to see that a little bit upset, right? And we had a Black president, obviously, which also drove much of the reaction of what we're seeing now. And so, I want to say that this crisis in democracy and racism are so intricately tied, right, that it's hard to make any other case. But let me just throw out a couple of things at you. So this is a crisis like we haven't seen before. A shrinking minority of the US population is trying to stay in power by changing the rules, by subverting the democratic process, and trying to nullify the voices of a new, diverse, multiracial, younger, and a more progressive majority. And all of these things that are happening, I want to make the case that they are affecting, for sure, African-American voters, lower income voters, a multiracial group of voters, but they're also affecting younger voters. That is actually the group that is the most affected by some of the things that are happening. And that's where, again, I'm throwing out to the people here that this is where you are being affected more than anyone else. And just 3 things to think about in terms of evidence, right? And there's so many pieces, but let me just say, the disenfranchisement of voters with felony convictions is obviously a huge suppression, right, of voters. Overall in America, 77 million Americans have a felony conviction. For those who don't know that number, that's 37% of all Americans, right? 37%, more than a third, almost 40% of all Americans have a felony conviction. In many, many, many states, they're not allowed to vote for life. Okay, not in all states. In many states, you can get your voting rights back. Let me give you an example of Florida. Florida is one of the states that does not allow people to vote for life, for parole, probation, incarceration, any conviction, a felony conviction. The voters in Florida, right, here's democracy speaking, 65% of the voters in Florida in 2018 voted to overturn that, to give people the right to vote. 65%, that's definitely a majority, right? We don't need to know a lot of math, but that is over, well over 50%. That was amazing, right? People spoke, they spoke. Then what happened? The governor came in and said, nope, now you have to pay all of your fines and fees if you want to vote, which is impossible because many people owe in the thousands of dollars for court fees, for incarceration fees, etc. So that has stopped. So in Florida, overall, by 8% of Florida voters Florida adults are disenfranchised, but 15% of African-American voters are disenfranchised in Florida. So we'll never be allowed to vote. Alabama, same, about 16%. Virginia, same, about 16%. So that's one issue, right, where clearly the voters spoke, and then something else happened. So if that's not a case of democracy in crisis, I don't know what is. Another one that we've all heard about, right, voter suppression laws. In the last year alone, 19 states have enacted 33 laws that will make it more difficult to vote, limiting mail voting, limiting early voting, harder voter IDs, more kind of difficult voter IDs, and purging voters from lists. In some states, it is a criminal offense now to help people get to the polling place. It is a criminal offense to help people return a ballot, right? If you have an elderly or a disabled family member and you want to help them get their ballot to the mail place, that's a criminal offense now. Let me say one other thing. In Texas, there's a March 1st primary in Texas. It's the first in the country. They are voting right now. Texas passed a law where for mail-in ballots, you have to put this ID number on the ballot. And nobody knows what that ID number actually is. Maybe it's your social security number, maybe it's your state driver's license number. Nobody seems to know. Thousands and thousands of ballots are being rejected right now in Florida, in Harris County, which is the most diverse county in all of the United States, where 35% of ballots have been rejected as of last week. 35%. Okay, again, who is this affecting? Right? Just who is this affecting as we think about this? And then just one last piece of evidence is gerrymandering. I think many of you probably have heard this, right? That this is a redistricting lines within states where the state legislatures in most cases decide where lines are drawn so that they kind of decide who gets to run in those districts and who gets to represent those districts. Just two quick examples. In Tennessee, Nashville, which is, as many of you probably know, it's an urban area, right? Kind of overrepresented by a multiracial, younger majority within a very kind of rural and pretty white state in general. They just took out Nashville's seat. Nashville had a seat that was represented by a Democrat in Congress for the last 30, 50 years. They just took it apart. They cut it up into many little pieces and put those people in other districts. There will no longer be a representative in the Democratic Party from Tennessee. All of those Nashville voters just lost their representation. And then in Alabama, 27% of voters in Alabama are African American. There are 7 seats in Alabama, so 27%, right? That's more than a quarter of Alabama voters are African Americans. Alabama has 7 seats in Congress. They are now only giving Black Americans really in Alabama 1 representative from all of the whole state, because again, they're cutting up people from enclaves where people live. That's only 14% of their seats. That's just a few pieces of evidence. I'm sure you're going to get more into this. But again, if you are wondering, is democracy really in crisis? I would say, yeah, it really is. And we need to wake up. And so why social workers, right? How are we involved? So we, as you all know, I don't need to tell you, right? We are working with individuals, families, and communities who are experiencing the most complex and challenging issues that we all face, right? Violence, discrimination, poverty, extreme inequality, substance use, homelessness, and mental health issues. All of these issues are very highly tied to democracy. And how? Why? Because if our democratic institutions were actually working, meaning that the majority of voices were actually being heard in our government, we would have universal health care. We would have parental leave. We would have voting rights for all Americans. We would end mass incarceration. We would have rights to reproductive health, and so on and so on and so on. Why is that? Because in poll after poll after poll, the majority of Americans want these things. They have expressed it. Every poll shows that Americans want this, and yet something's not right. Our representatives are not listening. They are voting against all of these things in every state, in state after state after state, and the federal government. So whose voices are being heard and whose voices are not being heard? And that, of course, is inextricably linked to the slipping away of democracy. And so I just want to finish what we're saying, social workers are key to addressing this crisis because we know what's going on the ground, right? This is the democracy crisis that is facing us. And if not us, who? And if not now, when? So I'm going to stop there and let you take it away.
Thank you so much. What a powerhouse. We're so grateful for those opening remarks to help set the stage and make the case for what we all agree with, that our democracy is in crisis. And so we understand that there's some technical issues that some of you are facing in terms of trying to log in. We apologize for that. Some are having to register again in order to get in, and it may in fact impact your sound and so forth. We apologize. We do have our Dean Catherine Potter, who is ready now to extend a welcome to all of you. Dean Potter.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. Honestly, 2 years in, you'd think we'd have Zoom totally organized. Welcome. It's an honor for Rutgers to host this year's Dr. Paul Shane Annual Policy Symposium, and it's so exciting to see so many people here. It looks like we might be over 300 people before we're all done for the day. It's great to see students and alumni and faculty members from all across the state. I'd like to thank our whole Rutgers team led by Dr. Dwayne Battle for organizing a really exciting day for us today. I really wish we were here in person together to see these amazing student posters up front and to talk with each of you as a group. And I look forward later this morning to the virtual version of that. Students, you are the future of social work, and we're already very proud of the work that you're doing. Rutgers' own Marla Blunt Carter will provide the keynote, and as you will hear, she's had a distinguished career in political social work, including work within Senator Biden and in the Obama White House. It's an honor to have her on our faculty, and you'll soon see why. Mr. Neron and Ms. Lawrence and Ms. Soto will provide some exciting views into the life of those involved with policy and political practice. We thank them in advance for their work and their time here today. So welcome again, and I'll hand back to Dr. Battle.
Thank you so much, Dean Potter. I should say in full disclosure that this is the second time in my 20 years of being a part of this great consortium that Rutgers has hosted. Rutgers, New Brunswick, and Camden have hosted this event, and both of them have occurred during Dean Potter's time as our dean. So thank you, Dean Potter, for your support for all things social work education, and in this space, especially undergraduate social work. I also need to fully disclose that some of my favorite people are, here today, and you just heard from Dr. Nepomniachtchi. The next person that we're going to hear from, as Dean Potter said, our keynote, I have the distinct privilege of being able to co-teach with our keynote speaker, who was here, Professor Marla Blunt Carter, who will be introduced in just a moment, as well as Professor Nepomniachtchi, and we have this class that we're teaching throughout this semester. So I am really excited that we just heard from Lena, and we now get to hear from Marla. And to do that, we're going to have one of our colleagues from our consortium, Dr. Sanjana Raghuvaran, who is going to come. She's going to provide a brief introduction of Professor Blunt Carter, as well as moderate this keynote session. So Sanjana, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dwayne. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for attending. We have over 200, almost 270 folks on this call on a rainy 9 a.m. when some people could have been sleeping in. So awesome job for showing up, everyone. And a shout out to my dean in the School of Social Work at Monmouth University. I know Dean Mama, you're here as well. So thank you, deans, for attending. It's really nice to see your support, in all the work that we are doing. I do appreciate that. And Dwayne and his team, oh my goodness, your IT. I did this a couple of years ago, and the IT and things like that, thank you so much for doing it with such grace, Dwayne, and charm. We love you. So my name is Sanjana Raghuvaran, and I'm an assistant professor at the School of Social Work at Monmouth University. It is my deepest honor to introduce to you Assistant Professor Marla Blunt Carter. She has committed her life to serving others, where she embraces many roles. She is a wife, mother, sister, daughter, assistant professor of professional practice at Rutgers University, an activist, and a political consultant. Prior to her career in academia, she held numerous positions in politics and practice, including projects manager in the Senate office of then US Senator Joe Biden, a state director for the 2008 Obama-Biden presidential campaign, a senior agency liaison in the executive office of the Obama administration, and senior advisor for Delaware Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester. On December 14th, Marla Blunt Carter was part of a historic group when she casted one of three Delaware Electoral College votes for then President-elect Joe Biden. She is a rock star, folks. All right. Just saying, putting it out there. Marla Blunt Carter is many things. I do not know her personally, so I Googled her last night. What struck me the most is her narrative on being colorful and the need for conversation. This is something that really I have struggled with a lot in my life, with my identity. So when she talked about being colorful, that really hit home for me. And the thing about conversation, the talk about conversation, that too, it's amazing with, with everything that we have experienced this last couple of years, right? Also very relevant now and fittingly aligns with Social Work Month next month. The time is right for social work. Everyone, it is my deepest honor to present Marla Blunt Carter to present her keynote today titled We the People. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Sanjana. That it took my breath away. I can't even get started. And it's very rare that I can't get my words together, but that really meant a lot to me, but you in that introduction. And just good morning to everyone. The posters at the beginning of this symposium, my gosh, they were amazing. And I hope everyone gets a chance to view them because they really are amazing work. And so this keynote is for the students. Let me begin by saying how honored I am to be speaking with you this morning. And to be totally transparent, while the title of this conference or symposium is Democracy in Crisis, I was having a mini crisis myself last night. As I was reading over my remarks and I started to question whether my message was the right message, if I understood the assignment, like they say. And so I thought about it and I wanted to make sure, I asked myself the question, how do I fully convey to you in this moment what is in my head and what's in my heart? How can I enable each of us to hold up a mirror to ourselves and our profession and remember that while our democracy may be in crisis, as social workers, we have played and play a pivotal role in healing, repairing, and uplifting this country and her people. Because for social workers, crises, they aren't new. And for us, there's no mission that's impossible. So, as we are currently living through a global pandemic, calls for racial and social justice, and facing a climate crisis that threatens our very existence. And even as we sit here today, Russia has declared war on the democracy of Ukraine, jeopardizing peace and freedom around the world. So this morning, democracy in crisis, it's right on time. And what is the answer? Well, I believe the answer can be found in the words of someone we all are familiar with, and that is Jane Addams. Jane Addams said that the cure for the ills of democracy is more democracy. So I'm going to say that again. The cure for the ills of democracy is more democracy. Now, for me, this all started as a kid in front of the TV, watching cartoons on Saturday morning. And in between the Flintstones and the Jetsons, there were these kind of educational commercials. They were called Schoolhouse Rock. They were short commercials, and they taught us everything from math to civics. And they were taught through catchy songs and rhymes. They would sing and just bring us in through those songs, and we would sing them over and over. Like, I'm just a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. That was one of my favorites. But my number one favorite was the preamble. You know, it starts with we, the people. It introduced me to the role and the function of government and the power of the people. So in the preamble, it lays out 6 of our nation's guiding principles. Number 1, to form a more perfect union. Number 2, to establish justice. Number 3, to ensure domestic tranquility, also known as peace within our country. Number 4 is to provide for the common defense against outside forces. Number 5 is to promote the general welfare. And then number 6 is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. I thought that word was really big and really cool when I was 8 years old. But posterity means the future generations to come. So these principles are the framework for our nation. But we are all aware of the fact that we have yet to fulfill them for everyone. That at the drafting of this guiding document, land was being taken from indigenous people. Millions of enslaved Africans were being brutalized, treated inhumanely, and denied basic human rights. Oppressed groups struggled to receive assistance or general welfare. And the blessings of liberty and access to a fair judicial system was not attainable to all. So these just injustices, they've been here and they have permeated the fabric of our nation since its inception, with cognitive dissonance on full display. In other words, believing one thing and doing another. But remember, the cures for the ills of democracy is more democracy. And we, the people, must play a part in our democracy in order to guarantee that we can continue to strive for that more perfect union. And this is where we come in, social workers. Look in that mirror. History shows us that we were on the front lines fighting to make America live up to its promises. The promises that were made in the preamble. Jane Addams, founder of the Settlement House movement, child labor laws, juvenile courts, first American woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize, social worker. Janet Rankin, pacifist, first woman elected to Congress. To today's Congresswoman, California's social justice warrior Barbara Lee. Both women voting against war. Both women, social workers. Frances Perkins, first female Secretary of Labor, the architect of the New Deal. Social Security, minimum wage, unemployment insurance. She did that, and she's a social worker. Civil rights pioneer, Whitney Young, and the National Coalition of Women's, the National Council on Negro Women, Dorothy Height, 2 civil rights pioneers that were also social workers. And in today's administration in the White House, in the Biden administration, there is a social worker that is an economic advisor and advises the administration. And that man is Jared Bernstein. He's a social worker. The solution to the ills of democracy is more democracy. And we, social workers, are the people. In times of crisis, social workers were there. We had the ideas, we organized, we made policy, and literally all you have to do is open the history books. You will find us. You will find you. And don't tell anyone, or don't let anyone else tell you that, you're just a student. You can't do it. You don't know. You're too young. No, you are the generation that is the most diverse, the most enlightened, and more on fire than any before. And we have proof. Studies have been performed, and a recent study by the Brennan Center for Justice show that more members of the millennial generation and Generation Z voted in 2020 in the presidential election than in any prior election. The director of polling at the Harvard Kennedy School's Institute for Politics shared in a recent article that for the first time in history, a majority of eligible voters under the age of 30 cast a ballot in an election. 40% of the electorate are Gen Z and millennials, with a few of us Gen Xers. I want to say that again. 40% of the electorate are Generation Z, millennials, and the young Gen Xers. You are the cure. So what can you do? What can we do? Okay, well, here are 4 things. The first thing is simple: vote. Just vote. We're showing you that numbers, you are the people. Register others to vote. Register your friends, talk to your family. And don't just vote in the big elections. I'm talking school board, I'm talking local municipal elections, I'm talking elections in your school. The second thing you can do is to continue to speak out. You are vocal, you are organized. I want you to engage in your community, attend more rallies and marches, perform more digital advocacy and organizing on social media, and become involved in issues that really matter to you. And then the third thing you can do is to work on campaigns and support the causes that are important as well. The organizations, the individuals who support our values and policies that align to who we say we are as a profession. And the last thing you can do is run for office. We need representation that looks like America. Run for office. So listen, I've said many things, but I want to share with you something else that is a crisis. I wanted to share a life-altering crisis that I experienced just prior to the pandemic that connects to our democracy. In July of 2019, out of nowhere, I suffered a stroke, and it paralyzed me on my whole left side. Over a year of physical therapy and rehabilitation, and I still struggle to regain the power, the strength, and the function of my left arm and my left leg. And then in the fall of 2020, I was contacted by the state Democratic Party, and they asked if I would serve as one of 3 electors for the state of Delaware, the home of the newly elected president, to certify the state's election results. So I practiced writing my name over and over so that I could sign the 9 copies of the certification, writing Marla Blunt Carter over and over every day, hoping that my penmanship would become more legible. And on December 14th, proudly standing with a cane in one hand, I had a preamble moment, a we the people experience. With the stroke of a pen, I, a social worker, was a part of history. But weeks later, on January 6th, I witnessed the mahogany boxes that held my signature and that of 537 other electors whisked from the floor of the House chambers as insurrectionists threatened the peaceful transfer of power. Had those boxes been confiscated or destroyed, where would we be today? For as fragile as we may seem as a nation, what I know to be true is like the African proverb says, Sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. We, the people, are unbreakable, but only if we stick together and we play our part. So my message is simple. Remember, we are the cure. And when they tell you democracy is in crisis, you say, yeah, but then you just tell them, we got you, because we're social workers and we can handle this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. That was very inspiring. All right, so who's going to run for office? Come on now.
Yes.
Let's see some emojis. Okay, so I'm going to start. I don't think we have any questions yet. So folks, start thinking of questions. Please put it in the chat. And I'm going to start with one. You know, as a professor in teaching policy and community practice, a lot of my students come into the class, you know, they are like, oh, professor, policy, like, you know, why do we have to do policy? I'm sure you've had that experience too, Professor, because you're shaking your head. And so my question to you, and most of our students, you know, are clinical, right? So how do we light that fire? I try my hardest, but if you could share, like, you know, with us, like, even if you intend to become a clinician, how can we engage, like, you know, that fire, you know, in voting rights, in everything that you talked about? That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, and I would love to hear from other professors on here as well, because I know Lena definitely lights the fire under the students. But I think the most important thing is just to share with them. And that's why I was talking about holding up the mirror, for them to understand that we have always been involved in policy, and to almost demystify, you know, politics, for them to see that these are just people that are just doing their best, right? That it's not something that they do not have the skills to do, but also it's in the best interest of their clients and the families that they're serving, for them to better understand the policies that are impacting their lives. You know, it's really to make them a better practitioner. One of our, you know, I talked about the preamble and how they were the guiding principles for our country. Well, we, NASW, has the Code of Ethics, and in the Code of Ethics, we have 6 core values ourselves, and one of them is competence. And so competence doesn't mean getting your degree and then just going out there. It means lifelong learning. It means really being aware of what is happening in the world, so that you can better advocate for your client. If you don't know the policies that exist, if you don't know how they impact the populations that we're serving, then how are you really operating with integrity? How are you using your knowledge to better serve society? So, you know, I just help them to understand, first of all, that politics and policy is not scary. It's not hard. Very simple. You know, you see something, you don't like the rules, you get a bunch of people together and you go try to change it. That's it. It's not that hard. But you know, so I try to demystify it, but then I also try to help the students connect the dots to see that if they really care about that client, then they need to understand the issues and the policies that are impacting the lives of the people that they're serving. So that's the way that I do it. I connect the dots, but I also take away the fear of that. I bring in speakers that are just like them. You know, some young, some that have experienced challenges, but they're still in office. You know, one of the people that I've helped get elected, and that's what I do a lot when we talk about political consulting, is I help the unconventional candidate become the elected official. And I do that by encouraging the candidate to be their authentic self, by just speaking the truth. I try to bring a lot of those examples into the classroom and have them share, you know, the journey. But also, I give them the behind the scenes look of, you know, what it takes to make policy. What is policy? You know, what does it look like? So yeah, I just try to demystify it, and remove the fear.
Thank you for that. So we have a lineup of questions now. So the next one being, what are the first steps if interested in running for office?
Well, first of all, you need to talk. It's all about circles, right? Because truly, don't listen to anyone when they say, well, it's not about the money. You're going to need money. So, but the first thing you need to do is research it. What office are you running for? How many votes did it take for the person that is currently sitting in that seat to win, right? And then you start to do the math yourself. My father, who is also an MSW and a graduate of Rutgers, a School of Social Work, graduated 50 years ago. He's the one who got me, my sister Lisa, who's the congresswoman, and my other sister involved in politics very early, 8, 9 years old when I was watching the preamble. And he showed us that it's just a matter of relationships, and the people around you. That is your base. So it starts with a base. If you have a desire to run, who's supporting you? And how can you grow that base so that you have the votes? Because it really is, it's about the votes. It's about the voice, because you want to be the voice of those individuals. But then you have to have the resources. So I would work on that. But the first thing you need to ask yourself, and you need to be able to answer in 30 seconds, is who are you and why are you running? Your message has to be clear. And the message isn't just for those that you're trying to gain their vote and their support. It's also for you to be very clear on your intention. Why are you running? Is there a reason that will really resonate with others? So, number one, answer that question. What is your why? Why are you running? And who are you? Because they want to hear that. But then the second thing is to look around you and determine what is that support that is around you that can help you get to the next level. And then thirdly, do the research. Find out, what it takes, how many votes you need. And then you also have to, like with anything else, you have to make a plan. Starting from election day, going backwards, right? You have to map it out. So there's that. Someone put in the chat about ready to run. There are so many candidate preparation workshops. Emily's List is a fundraising organization that supports pro-choice women running for office. And they also do and Lena put, the Center for American Women in Politics. But there are books, man, you can watch YouTube right now and figure out how to run. I would say though, that it's important that you start local, that don't run for Congress coming out the gate, that you really need to understand how to be a public servant in a way that you can really connect with your voters. And really understand the issues. So, starting local is definitely my suggestion. But get involved. I was 10 years old doing lit drops, and knocking on doors at 10. So before you decide to run, work on a campaign. See what it's like. Volunteer, and then figure out, is this what I want to do? Is this how I want to use the skills that I've been trained as a social worker to create social change? Do I want to do it in this way? Yes, and I see a lot of great suggestions in the chat, because it, like I said, speaking to my dad, who became the president of city council, I kind of left that out, and served in local government for over 25 years. And so I watched him take our social work skills and apply it in the political arena.
So our next question from Professor Klein is, what first steps could you suggest for our students to get involved besides helping to get out the vote?
Oh, well, it depends. I mean, get involved in politics or in social justice? I'm not quite sure.
Right. So Eileen, did you want to unmute and add to
Yeah.
your question? Professor Klein?
To unmute. I'm unmuted. Hi.
Yes.
So thank you so much. That was a wonderful and very inspiring talk. And I think that's where everybody, and after I wrote the question, and you did answer it a little bit, you know, about getting involved and really knowing who you are and what you want to accomplish.
Mhm.
I also think that people get fearful. Where's my first step? Do I knock on somebody's door and volunteer? Is it going to be okay to walk into somebody's office? So if you could just kind of, I don't know, make it not such a big mystery, especially
Right.
to young people to get involved. I always tell my class, the reason I'm teaching now is because I didn't change the world when I was doing direct practice. So now I'm teaching everybody else. Somebody has to fix it. It's broken. So, you know, how can people get involved to you know, make huge changes? You know, I wrote into the chat social justice, but also to maybe personally do some of the things that you're doing to actually promote candidates and you know, promote people and ideas that they believe in.
Well, let me tell you, every opportunity that I've had in politics has started from volunteering. Even as you know, an accomplished individual, I volunteered on the Obama campaign in the primary in 2008 in February, when he came to when his campaign came to Delaware, and Joe Biden at the time, I was on his staff. He had just left the primary race because he did horribly in Iowa. This is in 2008. And I'd gone to Iowa in 2007, had campaigned for him, and the Obama campaign saw me in Iowa campaigning for Joe Biden. So when they came to Delaware, their office was literally across the street from the Senate, Joe Biden's Senate office. So every 15 minutes, I was like, I'll be right back. I have to go get coffee. And I'd run across the street and volunteer for Obama, because I just knew that it was such a historic campaign. Volunteering it opens the door to almost anything in politics, just by being in the room. I would volunteer on that campaign on my coffee breaks, and they would ask me questions about Delaware. They didn't know Delaware, they were from Chicago, right? So I would just happen to be there stuffing envelopes, because no job is too small if you believe in the person or the mission or the issue, right? Stuffing envelopes, answering phones, phone banking is important. And I would see individuals walk in that I knew were kind of shady, you know, and I'd pull people aside and be like, yeah, you might want to watch this one. He's only in it for the money. Or after a while, they would come to me, the then state director. Hey, where's Marla? We need to know if this guy is for real. Or, hey, yeah, we need to know who to contact about getting, I don't know, a water ice truck or whatever. You know, information is the currency in the political world. And so what would I say? You need to volunteer. You just need to be there wherever things are happening. That's how you get in. Interning, yes. And it's just a matter of, you know, requesting an opportunity to be in the room. But it also is just with not with the member or the elected, with the staff. Offering your services to them is how you really not only ingratiate yourself, but you make a name for yourself. You build a reputation of being somebody that can get things done. And the next thing you know, from the volunteer, you get a position, and from a position, you get a higher position. Every job in politics that I've ever had, I came in just because I believed in the person. Paid. My first job in Biden's office, I was a staff assistant making $40,000. This is with MSW. Within 3 months, I was given a raise because they were like, wait a minute, she knows way more than what we thought she did. Within 3 months. Within 3 months after that, I was made the director of constituent services. Within a year, I was running not only the casework office in all of his offices, but I was also the projects manager on issues of health, education, and housing. Once we get there and they see what we can do, that's it. But it's getting in the room. So I would say, who do you believe in? What issues matter to you? Who's really advocating on those issues in a way that you want to be a part of it? And then just be there. Write the letter. I would love to volunteer, yada, yada, yada. Just be in the room.
Thank you.
That
Thank
is so powerful. Thank you. So we have another question from Ashley David that I think a lot of us can resonate with. I actually lost a longtime friend because of this. What is your advice to our generation, not just the younger generation, but us too, right, on civil conversation with our peers, our elders about policies and politics? Most peers of mine cannot have a calm and rational conversation, and I would love to become educated on how to go about this properly.
Yeah, it seems like we're all struggling to have what I've heard over and over again is uncomfortable conversations. And yeah, they're uncomfortable because we are dealing with stuff like we've never dealt with it before. And I know when it comes to family, that's where I think it's the most difficult, because it's easy to block a friend on Facebook, or to stop sitting next to the person in class that irritates you, but when it is Uncle Johnny across the table at Thanksgiving and he keeps saying things that are offensive, how do you handle that? I say you handle it with kindness. Back to our guiding principles of treating individuals with dignity and respect, including those that we do not agree with. That doesn't mean that we have to engage them in a discourse that is very negative and toxic. We can agree to disagree, but that doesn't mean that we're going to maintain this relationship. I have to accept the fact that if you do not value me, then I need to rethink the relationship. So how do you have those conversations? I think respectfully, but I also think that you need to, with anything else, what is your intention in this conversation? Be very clear. Am I trying, and what is the goal? Because if I'm talking to you about politics and you're a Trump supporter and everything is negative that towards the Biden administration, I'm going to let you know where I stand, but I'm not going to engage in a conversation when me changing your mind is not going to get me to where we need to be as a nation. Me changing that's not important for me. And so let me put it in the context of voting. Let me go back to how we do voter turnout. I always tell people that it's not GOTV, it's GOMV. Get out my vote. It's not get out the vote, right? You get out your vote, and you get out your vote by doing really good voter ID. That means you're canvassing, you're finding out who are your voters, right? And then on election day, you go to those houses. You don't waste time on when it comes down to election day. If you've done the math, like I said before, and you know that you have enough people based on your voters, you leave those other voters aside. You don't spend the energy on trying to get them to come out to the polling place, because you can use all of that energy to broaden your own base. It's the same with these disagreements. I want to grow the base of individuals that believe in treating people with respect and fighting some of these fights that we are called to do as a profession. So I will challenge you, but if it doesn't yield the result that I want, but then I'm going to move on so that I can continue to grow the base, grow the numbers, grow the we and we the people. I'm not going to spend the time and energy on trying to get out that vote. That's me. That's what I do. Say my piece, but I'm gonna go get 10 more of me over here.
That's being smart. I like that. So thank you for that. That was very insightful and, thought-provoking as well, I'm sure, for a lot of us. I just wanted to point out Professor Phyllis Peterman, Emeritus, she pointed out that, Professor Paul Shane, one person had a vision to make policy come alive and very impactful for students. He started a small event that has grown into a lasting symposium. And this has made a difference. So the power of one that, we often forget. So thank you, Phyllis, for pointing that out, reminding us, right, of where we stand today because of his vision and perseverance. So a question that has come up quite a bit is, where can we volunteer? You have inspired a lot of people, so tell us more.
Where do you live? I mean, and more importantly, what makes you just, like Lena says, what keeps you up at night? Right, Lena? Yeah. What matters to you most? That's where you volunteer. Who is doing the work that really speaks to why you came to this profession? That's where you volunteer. Yes, somebody put in the chat about should I minor in political science. That was my major in undergrad. I did not know things would turn out this way. But volunteering was always a part of what I did because I was always exposed to politics. I think, and every campaign that I've ever worked on, every candidate that I've ever believed in and worked for, I didn't do it just because I wanted to work on campaigns. I did it because I wanted to see that person in office, that particular person, right? I've been approached for the last 10 years to work on, just last week, someone asked me to help run the gubernatorial race for this gentleman in Delaware in 2024. You have to really want to see that person in office. It has to mean something to you. And so I can't tell you what is most important to you. I don't know the issues that mean something to you. I can tell you that who I will be working on in this coming election are a lot of these midterm elections in Congress, in the House seats, but the state and local elections, the state houses right now, in a lot of different states where they are creating these voter suppression laws. There are ways to support candidates not in New Jersey, but are important to you by phone banking, like they said before, by donating $5, just by getting in there. That means something. When you put $5 down on somebody, you tend to want to volunteer more because you want to see how your investment works out. So you hold yourself accountable as well. You know what I mean? So I think that, where to volunteer, there are large national organizations, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, but I think what's most important is that we get involved on the local level, that we volunteer there. And that that we make ourselves and our skills available to those that are closest to us. So I would say, look at opportunities locally. And volunteer at the NASW, National Association of Social Workers. They need volunteers too.
Yes, they do. All right, so moving on to the next question from Courtney Wise. What are some steps to take when trying to access federal, state, and local policy? Sometimes it feels intimidating and overwhelming as there is so much information out there.
She said, what is the best way?
Yes, in trying to access federal, state, and local policy, it sometimes feels intimidating and overwhelming with all the information out there.
So take your question directly to the congressperson. Every congressperson has a district office. in New Jersey, the Congress people have actually 2 or 3 district offices, and they have staff that are skilled to answer and address specific questions based on their area of expertise. So, and you can, that's what they're there for, to answer those questions. And that is not, it's as simple as writing an email. It's as simple as that. And I can say that because when I worked in the White House, at one point I was a senior agency liaison in the executive office of the president for presidential correspondence. And every letter that was written to the president was read by White House staff and was addressed in a manner that the questions were answered, whether they were forwarded to the appropriate federal agency or were addressed and sent to congressional and Senate offices, redirected to those offices so that the constituent issues were addressed. I think that we are of the belief that, yeah, well, once you write an email, they'll just send you a form letter back and that's the end of it. That's not true. It's not true. So I would say if you want to deal with anything that is federal in nature, you need to contact your congressional members and they will respond. And that's another thing, that elected officials respond to those that put them in office. If you did not vote, then you really are not someone that and they look to see, well, did they vote? Is this somebody that is active and engaged in the civic process? So if you vote, you could say, hi, I am a voter of yours. I really support the work that you're doing, yada, yada, yada. That's where I would go. Okay. I would not just go to Wikipedia or start looking up things and.
All right. Thank you for that. So we have a very good question from Riham. How can I, in my educator role, support the students to have such conversations from the equity, diversity, and inclusion perspective with respect and without causing a clash among students? How to foster difficult discussions around social policies guiding our social work practice?
Wow, that's a loaded question. And I think we need Dr. Battle on this call for that one. But the reason why I say that is because he is the coordinator of our diversity in oppression class. And one of the things that Dr. Battle shared with all of us that teach that class is he at the top of the semester, he shares like some ground rules with the class so that everyone knows that it is a safe space to share. And his classroom management of making sure that people are that they're, I don't even know how to say it. They feel validated, but they also feel protected. I think setting the ground rules and making sure that that people know that they can really talk honestly, but also know that they will be challenged, and tying it to the readings, tying it to our code of ethics, reminding people of who we are as a profession. I think that it's important that there's that connection between who we say we are and once again, what you do. So someone gets out of line, somebody says something out of pocket, you say, well, hold on now, I don't know if that's in line with the code of ethics, or, I believe it's responsibility of the professor to not just try to keep the peace. We're there to educate and to prepare you. So you do need to be called out when things are not in alignment with who we say we are as a profession.
Absolutely. I'm gonna chime right in. I just appreciate that so much. First, I want to say thank you to Riham, because Riham is does not reside in the United States. And so I think of our conference as going from being a state conference to being an international conference. So just want to put that out there. And I want to thank Marla so much for, this amazing, the presentation, the keynote, but also the conversation. And this is really what we wanted. And so it's happening. And so I feel like I'm invited to come into the conversation and just echo what Marla just stated so clearly. Rihan, we talk a lot about safe spaces, and having, but I think we also have to have brave spaces so that the spaces are not only safe, but they are such that we can handle critical conversations and everything that, again, that Marla just mentioned. I'm just echoing it and offering, a source of support to agree with it, that we want to make sure that students have the ground rules so we can have conversations. We have ground rules. We have ground rules for civil discourse, and yet we end up with hate speech. We have ground rules for for the way that we can have our political activism noted, and yet we have an insurrection. And so you can't, one cannot just allow others to run rampant over the thoughts and the ideas that are being communicated, because that's one of the ways to hijack a conversation. Yes, even in a classroom. So safe spaces, brave spaces, critical conversations, I think they all go together. And I'm doing this really just let Marla get a breather.
No, I tried to throw out a lifeline to Lena, but she just nodded her head like, yep, Marla, you got it. But no, Dwayne, listen, I learned that from you.
Yes, absolutely. Together. Well, and since Sanjana, since I'm in this, I do want to, we were talking, Mara and I recently about, and I think it really relates to what we're saying here, about one of your students who is now on the Hill. And so I think it might be helpful for our all of us, but especially our students, to hear that story.
Yeah, so last year, a student of ours graduated, and she, her last semester, we met on a couple of occasions, and she expressed to me that she really wanted to work in the political arena. And I suggested that she apply for different positions with the different congressional offices. Oh, Lena, I see your hand up. Okay, so hold on. And so she ended up getting a job as a constituent services advocate, a caseworker. Although she was management and policy, she said, well, but they said they would hire me as a caseworker. What should I do? I said, take the job, work for this individual, and, you will move quickly. The student had also written an op-ed on student loan debt and was phenomenal. And I asked if she would participate in first ever White House briefing to social workers that I helped to put together. And she was one of the presenters on student loan debt. So when she landed in the congressman's office, her writing skills became evident to everyone in the office. Her understanding of the community and her ability to really put into practice who we say we are was on full display. And in January of this year, she was able to compete with others in the office and landed a position in the office on the Hill. So she is now working in Washington, not even a year after she graduated. And she's working on policy. So, that is the perfect example of what I said about just get in and then watch you move, But Lena, go, Lena.
I just wanted to add one piece about conversations that I think haven't been covered. And from my perspective, I'm a researcher. I don't have a political experience, but what I use is data, right, and information and facts. And I have certainly I've now put myself in a little bubble, but that was not always my life, right? I knew lots of people who've had very different opinions and thoughts about life than me. And in class, we see that all the time, right? Many of our students are coming from families where some of the stuff that we're talking about, they have never been exposed to before. And I think the most important thing that one can do is bring facts to the conversation. Obviously, always respectful, always taking into account where people are from, right, and what their experiences have been. But exposing people in your life, your family, your friends, your colleagues, to the stuff that you're learning in your policy classes, right? Why do we have this policy? What based on what, right? Why do we have these incredible disparities in wealth, in income, in health outcomes? It's all based on very specific facts, right? And so we can bring those, and that's again where our classes can be used, right, to change conversations. So I just wanted to add that in, and thank you, Mark.
I agree, Lena. And I think that data and facts are extremely helpful in educating individuals that want to learn. Okay, that want to learn. It's having the discernment to determine when is that energy required, when is that knowledge that you have gained beneficial and will be received. And sometimes it may not be received. Like I said before, share the information and then let it do what it do, like they says. Like you can't get hung up on it. It's like planting the seed but not waiting for it to bloom. Maybe they will have the aha moment long after you're gone. So yeah, you speak your truth, you back it up with facts, and then you don't take it personal.
Very, very true. And I like how you said, they have to want to take in the information. That's so important for us to realize that.
And also not to take it personal though, because I think that is also very important. Understanding that, someone's inability to take something in, there's a reason why they're holding on to that belief. And not making this a challenge for you.
Very true. So, Dwayne, do I have time to throw in one last question?
In the chat.
Yeah, no, from the chat.
I'm teasing. Actually, I'm being notified by our IT staff that we need to shift. Thank you. We need to shift to our the next part of our program. And let me just thank you, Sanjana, thank you, Mala, for an amazing keynote session. All of us, those of us who've been to conferences, yes, there I see the applause. You've lit up the chat, so you can certainly, make comments there, giving celebration to what we've received. But I started to say, all of us have participated in conferences where there are poster presentations, and the poster presentations are often in exhibit halls and in other spaces where you have to really work to get there. And our colleagues working together here with the New Jersey Baccalaureate Social Work Education Association agreed that we wanted to do something different this year, and that was to place the student posters right in the middle of this symposium, and to give it prime real estate right after the keynote address. And so we have 56 students who have worked hard. Thank you. I see Dean Potter's celebrating 56 students from our different schools who have worked hard to create these posters that relate to policies and in response to social problems. And so behind the scenes, we have placed these posters in 13 different groups that more or less coincide with the grand challenges for social work. And you are being, you're going to be placed in those rooms. those of us who are a part of this association, we have agreed to serve as moderators. So my colleagues will be serving as moderators. You'll be in a breakout room. They're 50 minutes. Students will present for about half of that time, 4 or 5 students. And then you'll have Q&A there. So please be fully engaged for the students and for each other. And following that, you're going to get a 10-minute break. And we're going to come back from the break. You'll be asked to come back, and we have a group meditation because we want to practice self-care with all of you. So I think I've said what I need to say, and I know that Karen is going to work behind the scenes, and you're going to be exited to your breakout room. So have a great time with the student posters. Thank you, and thank you again to all of those who've already spoken in this symposium. See you shortly. We could really appreciate Dr. Anthony Nicotera leading us in this group meditation. So I'm going to ask that that my friend, my colleague, Anthony, come now and lead us in our group meditation.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. I'm so really honored to be with you all. I'm inspired and encouraged by our students, first and foremost, by our faculty, our colleagues, and our beloved social work community. Thank you all. I'd like to begin, my students will be familiar with this, by inviting a singing bowl. I'm going to apologize in advance because it doesn't translate well virtually, but I will invite it anyway. So we take a deep breath in, and before I share a short mindfulness practice, I just invite you to take a moment, and maybe you've done this already, but maybe just to stretch in whatever way feels good for you. You might want to stand if you'd like. As we know, as social workers, we are embodied biopsychosocial spiritual beings. So as we engage our intellect, scholarship, and learning, it's also important to engage our breath and our body. My name again is Anthony Nicotera. I'm an assistant professor of social work at Seton Hall University. Though in some ways, I'm always a beginner. I have been practicing mindfulness and meditation for some 30 years now. And I'm deeply grateful again for the invitation to share brief mindful meditation practice with you today as a practice of both presence and self-care, which is so critically important in the work that we do, and in this moment in particular. I integrate mindfulness practices into all of my classes. As I trust you know, scientific studies and research has shown that mindfulness practice can help reduce things like stress and anxiety, can help regulate our autonomic nervous system, and in that way can be very healing, especially in a time of pandemic, as we heard from Dr. Blunt-Carter, and just as we know, in time of polarization, racial reckoning, violence, environmental crisis, so many things happening in this moment, it's so critically important for us to engage in self-care and practice presence, which helps us, I think, be not only more present to our own needs and deep desires, but also to the needs of others. So I share with my students these simple practices, just paying attention to breath, body, using simple, maybe mantras, words, or phrases that are significant to help you center, can help, in the words of Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, help us be here now without judgment. It's not about doing it right or wrong, but it is just about taking time to be here now without judgment. It can also give your immune system the opportunity to do what it wants to do, and namely that is to take care of you. I also share with students these practices of presence and self-care are, from my perspective, practices of justice. And the work of justice requires that we engage in self-care. I've had the privilege of working with a great mindfulness practitioner and justice advocate. And again, my students may be tired of my referencing him, but he was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk and Zen master named Thich Nhat Hanh. He's referred to as Thai, which means teacher, and he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1967. He recently, on January 22nd, just passed actually, and what he would call continued at the age of 95. He called himself a social worker and integrated mindfulness practices into his work for peace and justice, what he called socially engaged Buddhism, and his effort from an international perspective to address our social work grand challenges, I believe. So I invited the singing bowl to begin, and I will use it again during our practice. But before the practice, I'd like to share a few words from Ty about the singing bowl. He shared with me that he believes that the invitation or the sound of the singing bowl is the voice of our ancestors calling us home to our deepest truth in the present moment. It's an invitation to connection. Consistent with our core social work values, Ty believes that we should replace the verb to be with to interbe, in as much as we do not exist outside of relationship one with the other, and that includes our environment. So he asks us to remember our connection every time we sound or invite the singing bowl. In fact, when I was with Ty in his Plum Village community in France, every time a bell rang, including the sound of a cell phone, for example, everyone stopped, paused, took a deep breath just for a moment, and then continued. Ty invites us to do something like this even in our own practice, maybe even scheduling regular bell sounds on our phone that invite us to pause, even if just for a moment periodically during the day, to just be here now without judgment and breathe. The practice I'd like to share with you is called Pebble Meditation, and it was shared with me again by Thich Nhat Hanh and his community. We featured it in a film that we created with Thich Nhat Hanh called Planting Seeds of Mindfulness with Children, that I had the privilege to help produce. And this meditation, though, is not just for children. In fact, it's a favorite of the monastics and retreatants at Plum Village. I've used it with in my clinical work with gang members, with kids, with students, with adults, people of all ages. I use it myself. I hope it might be helpful to you. Again, it's called Pebble Meditation because their community uses 4 pebbles as they do the meditation. You don't need to, in fact, I'm sure you don't have, I'd be surprised if you do, pebbles right now, but you can use your fingers and your thumb and basically just touch your thumb to each one of your 4 fingers as we go through this, and I'll guide you through it. And it invites the use of imagery and imagination to connect to deep sources of strength and power. So in using your fingers to replace the pebbles, your pointer finger is the flower, your middle finger is mountain, your ring finger is still water, and your little finger is space. So when we begin momentarily, I'll invite you to touch your thumb to your pointer finger, and then invite you to breathe in and know that breathing in, you are flower, breathing out, you are fresh. And then touching your thumb to your middle finger, I'll invite you to breathe in and know that breathing in, you are mountain, and breathing out, you are solid. And then touching your thumb to your ring finger, I'll invite you to breathe in and know that breathing in, you are still water, and breathing out, you are calm and reflecting. And then I'll invite you to touch your thumb to your little finger, excuse me, and I'll invite you to breathe in knowing that you are space, and breathing out, you are free. So it's again using imagery to try to connect with the deep notions and characteristics within ourselves that are truths about ourselves. Fresh, we need to be fresh and solid and calm and reflecting and free in our interactions with others, and we need to cultivate those characteristics in ourselves. So as we begin, posture is important. So just invite you to be comfortable, alert, but not stiff. Maybe your hands are comfortably in your lap. Your eyes might be just softly focused or closed, whatever you prefer. Maybe your feet are flat or legs are crossed. Again, I'll just invite a deep breath at the outset, pause at the top, slowly sinking into your seat, and invite you to try to let go of any preoccupation with the past or the future, and be here now without judgment. Again, I'll invite the singing bowl to begin, and then I'll guide us through the pebble meditation, and then invite the singing bowl at the end. So touch your thumb to your pointer finger. And breathe in and know that you are flower. Breathe out, you are fresh. Flower, fresh. Flower, fresh. Touch your thumb to your middle finger. Breathing in, I am mountain. Breathing out, I am solid. Mountain, solid. Mountain, solid. Touching your thumb to your ring finger, breathe in, I am still water. Breathing out, I am calm, reflecting. Still water, calm, reflecting. Still water, calm, reflecting. Touching your thumb to your little finger, breathing in, I am space. Breathing out, I am free. Space, free. Space, free. Continue on your own with your breath in and out for about another minute. I'll light a final bell. So as we continue in the present moment, let us together take our freshness, our solidity, our calm, our reflectiveness, our freedom into the world to deepen our policy work, our work to address the grand challenges, our work for social justice, and our work to build what Dr. King called the beloved community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so very much. I am flower, mountain, water, space. I am. I'm fresh. I'm solid. I'm calm and reflecting. I'm free. We need an hour of that. What an amazing experience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to continue as we move on. So glad again to see all of you that are here with us today. I see colleagues and students and partners in the community and friends. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that our organization, the New Jersey Baccalaureate Social Work Education Association, has been led these couple of years by our president, Mary Landriau, who is from Seton Hall. She's done an amazing job, and she is going to hand the baton to me, which is our custom after this event concludes. But right now, she's going to come before us and both introduce and moderate the session we have now with Stanley Naran. So I turn it over to Mary Landriau.
Thank you so much. That was great. I'm trying to be able to see myself. All right. I can't see myself, so that's a little strange, but I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Judy. It is my honor and privilege and just joy to introduce our next speaker, Stanley Naran. Some people say that great leaders are born, not made, and he is one such leader. Stanley Naran was born to Haitian parents that reared him with a balance of discipline and a belief in endless possibilities. It is that continuous persistence to strengthen the core values his parents instilled in him that has resulted in his personal and professional success. He is an experienced inspirational speaker, human service and social service advocate, and a spiritual steward. He is active in his church, the Morning Star Community Christian Center, where as chair of the men's ministry for 8 years, he was able to enrich the lives of hundreds of men and young boys through creative programming. His commitment and service to others manifests in many aspects of his life. For the last 3 years, he has volunteered countless hours as an elected official, commissioner for the Elizabeth Board of Education. He has chaired the Education Management Committee and pushes colleagues and the administration continuously strive for perfection. Mr. Naran is a dedicated mentorship to youth. In fact, for the last 20 years, he's mentored endless students at his alma mater, King University, where he remains connected and invested in student success. He holds a bachelor's degree in public administration and collateral in African studies, and is determined to assure that students of color achieve, enter, and complete their educational goals. Stan grew and managed and grew the Office of Youth Services for over 10 years before his recent promotion to Assistant Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Elizabeth. And as Assistant Director, he provided invaluable coaching and supervision to employees that are charged with providing quality services to some of the city's most vulnerable residents, including seniors and children. He represents the city on numerous boards and committees that include Prevention Links, which is how I know Stan. I'm honored to serve with him on that board. The Union County Housing Trust Fund, Comprehensive Emergency Assistance Systems, and the Continuum of Care Committee. He has forged relationships with key stakeholders locally, other elected officials statewide, and across the country, as well as internationally. His ability to manage the success is a result of his colorful career in the first few years, post-collegiate years. During that time, he worked as a writer, producer, filmmaker, and agent for comedians, poets, and lecturers, for which he has coordinated several national tours. He established deep-rooted relationships with representatives from MTV, VH1, and BET, and has a project that was nominated for the NAACP Image Award. His accolades include co-producing the Best Hip Hop Comedy, 2 award-winning independent films, and serving as executive producer of the 2004 National Hip Hop Political Convention concert series. His compassion for humanity was appropriately recognized in 2009 when the Universal Peace Federation honored Stan as an ambassador for peace for his work in the community. After the earthquake in Haiti in January 2010, Stan co-founded New Jersey for Haiti, a coalition established to help provide relief and address long-term needs in Haiti. In addition to providing hundreds of thousands of dollars of relief and resources to the people of Haiti to rebuild schools and assist with infrastructure development, he also met with leadership in Haiti to strategize increasing tourism and developing methods to address the economic instability of the country. As he recognizes that economic stability is key to independence, in 2013, Stan and his business partners launched a new venture that would invigorate the face of Haitian culture here in the United States. First Republic Restaurant and Lounge was started in 2013 and focuses on fine Haitian cuisine, art, culture, and is now an Elizabeth, New Jersey destination and has been recognized as one of the best Caribbean restaurants in New Jersey. Stan is past president and currently serves in his 3rd year as commissioner on the Elizabeth Board of Education. And on May 1st, 2019, history was made when Stan was appointed to the mayor's cabinet as the first Black director of the City of Elizabeth's Department of Recreation. It is my honor to call him a friend and colleague, and I'm so happy that he could be with her today to talk about his work with Haiti. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Mary. And it is an honor and blessing to be amongst all of you. Thank you, Dr. Battle. Mary, I would not be here without you. So I wanna thank you, and our years of friendship has been phenomenal. And the work that you all do is very near and dear to my heart because I didn't know that entire bio was gonna be read, but thank you for the beautiful introduction and just really talking about my past and how I got to be here with you today. And the story of my life has been a work of compassion and passion to really heal the hearts of many, not just those of my home country, but those all around me. I truly believe in that. And that meditation, Mr. Anthony Nicotero, was phenomenal. Thank you for that. We are truly blessed to have you in our presence to be able to heal souls and heal so many. We need that every day, like Dr. Battle said. We need a little bit more of that, right? Because we deal with so much, especially in the time that we're living in. But again, it is indeed a true pleasure and honor to be with you today. I wanted to start off the day by taking you back home with me really quick. And I want to take you on a little journey back to Haiti before we really start talking about the work that we do. So at this time, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you'll all be able to see the video that I'm about to present to you and really just take you home to give you a sense of the work that we do, why we do it, and where we are today. All right, so let me get that started. And hold on. Are you guys seeing my screen? Okay.
Just driving in, it kind of gave me a sense of like, I've seen this before. Where are the changes? Have there been any changes? But then I felt that I was there to make a difference. So that kind of counterbalanced what I was
feeling. I think really our main objective, we've been here for 8 years now. And I would say that we really want to help as much as we possibly can.
This year we're working here and we're doing a medical mission, which is different from what I've done in previous years. This is my 2nd year that I've been blessed to be able to come here. And the first day, always it takes your breath away. Really just the happiness that the people have, even though that you're coming here to help them, but they also nourish you as well.
The best way to describe it, the older people who were treating, I felt as if I was treating my grandparents. And the older one, I felt as though I was treating like my aunt and uncle. I mean, I think always doing mission trips are very emotional. It really humbles you as a person to see what we actually have and what you see in person here. But it's a great feeling to be able to help a community in need. Just seeing how many people have showed up and are willing to come and ask for help is really motivating, and also just seeing how everyone lives on a day-to-day basis that really puts things into perspective, especially when we're at home and we think about how we live there. Take the world to its feet. Mountains, bring it to its feet. Mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. Motivate us really is the kids. I mean, the children are amazing, and all these kids have big dream and aspiration to do great things, and we just really want to give them a starting point to help them to get to the end goals of whatever they want to become later on in the future. That we're able to help a lot of people, and you really feel like you're making a difference in somebody's health, really. Very humbling. It really puts you in a different perspective of life, of really appreciating what you have. Look beyond, your immediate world and see what good that you can do out there. It's just little things such as singing with the children that bring a lot of joy. But I think also bringing awareness. There's no greater feeling than being here and being able to give back to people that are less fortunate than you. And we'll rise up, like the waves will rise up. Eh bien, ok, merci pour moi, bien content. Le fait que nous sommes là, nous disons, bon Dieu a dirigé nous fait travailler la plus bien, parce que moi, j'ai une fierté qui est entrée dans moi-même, parce que pour moi, chaque année, je viens là, je porte soin pour nous, je porte médicaments pour nous, je porte bagages pour moi-même aussi, je participe là-dedans, nous participer dans la santé, ça fait plaisir en pile avec nous, nous connaissons, l'histoire, après nos bagages nous-mêmes, qu'après pour l'histoire, pour l'histoire. Merci.
Okay, so everybody did hear that clearly, correct? All right, awesome. So again, it is an honor to be with you today. What you just witnessed was the organization that I helped to find. I helped co-found in 2010 in the wake of the 2010 deadly earthquake that claimed over 300,000 lives, over 350,000 lives in Haiti. And just want to give you a little background on how that began and how we started this work, and really talk about, the work and what that takes and what that means and why we're still there 12 years later. The night of the earthquake, January 12, 2010, we all came together, meaning the community at large, and said something has to be done. At the time I was very active in the Haitian community. My family's from Haiti, and we wanted to really address the issue and see, what can we do? How can we create a concerted effort to address this humanitarian cause? Because it was no longer what we were seeing on CNN and what we were seeing on television was not just something that happened in Haiti. It was, hundreds of thousands of lives being claimed, and the world said, we need to do something. So here in New Jersey, we came together as a Haitian community, as clergy, as elected officials, lay people, students, the community at large just came together and said, let's create a concerted effort. Let's form a campaign that's really going to bring awareness as to how people can help. And that led to, one thing led to another, right? You start off with an initiative to just, help. Next thing you know, the charge of the world is on your shoulders and on your back. And before we know it, they had donated 300,000 square feet, 30,000 square feet warehouse to us, where we collected over $4 million of durable medical supplies. Now, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be running a nonprofit organization to give back to my mother's homeland, because, you know, there is a stereotype, if you're from Haitian culture, that you can't go to Haiti, it's not safe, they're gonna chop you up and put you in suitcases and you'll never make it. If you go to Haiti, they're gonna destroy you, you know, you just can't go back, right? And here we have this 30,000 square foot warehouse filled with supplies and donations, and it has to get to Haiti, right? How do we do that? Well, you know, we had raised enough money, we had raised enough support. The gentleman that you saw in the video is actually Dr. Eliza Marcellus, who's actually a dean at Rutgers University. So it's ironic that we're doing this at Rutgers University. He's down in Camden. And he was actually doing the same effort that I was doing in North Jersey down in South Jersey. And at the time, Senator Lautenberg said it would be a great idea that we come together and form a real New Jersey coalition. And we did. We brought the North and South together, and we did that. We then told the community that we were headed to Haiti. Well, of course, like my parents and everybody, who, if you're of Haitian culture, you know what they say. They say, you know, you can't go to Haiti because it's not safe. Well, we said, we're going. And we know that in the spirit of what Anthony Nicotera presented to us today, when you put good into the world and you move in positive energy, that's all you receive back is the positive energy. If you believe in what you're doing and the work that you're doing is to save lives, you're safe, you're good, you're in God's hand, you're in good grace. And the work that we led to do was to save the people of Haiti, to help rebuild and restore Haiti. And that same year, 2010, we went to Haiti 6 months straight. We brought all the supplies that we had collected and we began the work. And the work that we began was very overwhelming. It was devastating because every time you get to Haiti at the time, there was, you know, dead bodies, there was trash, there was pollution, there was turmoil, there was crime. You wanted to solve every single thing that you see that was wrong at the time at the epicenter, because we were working in a tent city of 20,000 people. So that's a lot of people. And if you're not used to that type of environment, it can be extremely traumatizing, right? To all my social workers out there, you understand what I'm talking about. So the debriefing, the post-traumatic impact of seeing that type of devastation can really get to you as the person who's actually doing the work and the people, the volunteers who are going out there to do the work. You know, most people think, hey, you can go out there and just set up a tent and you'll be okay. No, you know, you're not used to that type of terrain. You're not used to that type of trauma. It is very taxing on the spirit, mind, body, and soul. So we went in, we began to work, and we realized a year in that this is overwhelming, you know, that you really got to streamline the work that you do. But I will tell you that first 3 years actually, we were able to see hundreds of thousands of people, literally, because we went with doctors, we went with nurses, we went with social workers, we went with, you know, every trip we took $20,000 worth of medication with us into Haiti to help save lives. And at the time, people had, a lot of people, and still now, have never seen the presence of a doctor, have never gone to a clinic because, you know, they deal with natural remedies, they feel that they're too poor, they feel that they're worthless, that nobody would care to see them or talk to them or take care of them. And I can talk to you about this all day, right? I could be here for 6 hours talking. So I don't think I have enough time to really fit in all that I want to say. But what I will say is, when we started to notice the trends of how people felt about themselves and the value that they saw within themselves, they really didn't think they were worth much, right? They didn't think that people cared for them. So the questions that I would get asked is, where did you come from? And I said, well, I'm from New Jersey. They're like, really? New Jersey where? Like the United States? You came all the way from the United States to work with us? Like, yes. And they were in disbelief because one, they don't often see people that look like them, that come from the States to help them. And secondly, people from around the world, they often don't interact with to come and help them during such a devastation. So that brought joy to their heart. And for many of them, that was their first time ever coming in the presence of what you would call a Christ, a God figure, or somebody who really cares, and they are seeing the presence of God within you, trying to help them in their lives, right? And that blew them away. And just that presence alone changed the perspective and was healing to them. There's a few stories I want to tell because I think it's going to put everything in perspective and is really going to really separate us from the rest, right? New Jersey for Haiti. And I'm not here to toot New Jersey for Haiti's horn, but I'm here to talk about the work that we all do and what it requires. It requires compassion. At the time, we were now, I'm going to say 2.5 years in. We are, oh no, this is a year and change. We're like a year because we went so many times, I lose track of time all the time. But we were about, I'm going to say maybe a year and 6 months in. And we had to drive to a community called Tiguave. In Tiguave, we had to drive through 2 rivers to get there. I want to put that in perspective, why I said that. We drove our bus of 2 rivers to get to this particular location. When we got to the location, we had hundreds and hundreds of people waiting for us. And usually what we do is we assess the community that we go in, and we find out if there's any emergency medical clinics in that area. And we did discover there were 2. So, we set up triage, we get our routine going, and we start to see people. And there's a woman who is now a woman. She is 8 months pregnant, but has been bleeding for 2 months. So typically that's a miscarriage, right? That's potential miscarriage in some cases, especially in Haiti. Immediately, I had one of our volunteers. I said, we have to take this woman to an emergency medical clinic because this is serious. This is not something we can handle during triage. I want you to understand what happens. I send this volunteer who I believe she was from Rutgers University. So, shout out to Rutgers again. And she takes her to this emergency medical clinic that's there. They speak Spanish. They were from a Latin American country. And they said to her, well, what do you want? How can we help you? Spread your legs like you spread for your man. And we're like, huh? Whoa, wait a minute, pause. She didn't come here for that kind of treatment. She's sick, she's pregnant, and she needs care. And well, she knows the routine. She just got to spread her legs. Either she's going to spread her legs or she's going to go. And what they didn't realize is my volunteer that came with her actually spoke Spanish too. So then she responds to them in Spanish, and they're shocked because now they didn't think that she knew what was going on. And she says, no, she's here for care. We're in New Jersey for Haiti. We brought her here. We need you to take care of her. And we need you to be compassionate. We need you to be patient with her. And we're going to take care of her. But see, let me tell you something. This is why they would not go to a clinic, because there's no, the human treatment, the compassion, the care, having kindness to deal with people of a third world country oftentimes isn't there when NGOs are going into these countries, because they're looking at the people as if they're beneath them and not looking at them that you're my brother, you're my sister, you're human just like me, I'm here to care for you, right? They eventually did the examination. Thank God the volunteer was there with her. And when they did the examination, they found out that she had an STD. Well, they ripped a piece of paper, literally ripped a piece of paper and wrote down the prescription of what she needed and gave it to her. So I was a little dumbfounded because I said to myself, well, this is an emergency medical clinic situated in Haiti. You're giving her, a woman who's literally barefoot and pregnant, a ripped piece of paper and telling her, here's your prescription, go get the medication. I don't understand your purpose there. So then when she comes back to us, and they said to me, this is what she needs. So like I said to you, we come with $20,000 worth of medication. Now, I have a team of doctors and nurses and pharmacists that work on the medication. I don't always know what we have in inventory. We had all the medication she needed for her STD. And we gave it to her. And the doctor had said that she needs to take it and her husband needs to take it. And we gave her that medication. But in my mind, I said to myself, we drove through 2 rivers to get here. There are no pharmacies in town. So she would have to go through 2 rivers to go to the mainland, to go to the main city to actually try to find this medication. There was no way this woman would have survived. So what happens is every time we go, we literally save a life in a lot of cases. When the young lady realized that we had all the medication. She told the entire village. In essence, we couldn't leave that evening because everybody was now saying, we have the cure, we have the solutions, and everybody, kind of formed a circle around us, praising us as the saviors of the day. But, I tell you the story to really tell you that it's about compassion, and that's the difference of the work that we do, because you have to treat the people with love. You got to treat them with compassion. You got to show them that they are worth something and they're full of value. So what is the work that we do? Well, we do medical mission work. We do, we began when we started to streamline our work, we realized that we can't do everything. We can continue doing medical mission, we can support education, but we can't address all the other issues that exist because there's so many issues that exist. But a lot of them are tied together. So with the medical mission, we also work on water purification. We work on purifying water in a particular section of Haiti, which is the northern section where there was a major outbreak in cholera. It was called Marchand de Saline, which is where, there was the huge outbreak, and you saw that video where you saw the water. You saw the river, the murky river that the kids bathe in. They drink that water, and we've been working on providing them with clean water so that they don't have to have a lot of the waterborne diseases that we have to treat every time we go back. So we've created continuum care by having consistent medical missions there and providing the necessary assistance that they need. In that particular community, we also support education. We help to support a school that services a community of 10,000 people. And there are about 500 students at that particular school that we help to serve. So that is the work that we do. Now, things have changed, obviously. Fast forward, what happens in 2021? 2020. We could not go back to Haiti in 2020, obviously. The virus broke out and it was a pandemic. So now we're restricted from going, we're restricted from leaving, and double fold, there's a gang takeover in Haiti, and now there becomes gang wars throughout the country. So as that started to become a major crisis, that was 2019 when that began. And in 2019, we could no longer go back to the area that we were going in, where we have the water purification, we work with the school, where we're doing the continuum of care. So we now decided we were going to go into Cité Soleil. Now, if anybody Googles Cité Soleil right now, you will discover that it's considered to be one of the worst parts in the Western Hemisphere when it comes to gang violence and what people consider the ghetto. And they say it's the worst ghetto in the Western Hemisphere. That's what it says on Google, right? We went in. We had our team go in and talk to the people of the village to say, we're coming in. We understand that you have a need and we want to fulfill that need. They said, okay, all guns down. They're coming in to address the need, but we're going to watch them. And I really mean, they said they're going to watch us, right? And they did. They watched us the very first day and they pulled me to the side. They said, no, you guys are the real deal. People usually come in here and give us expired medication. They don't touch our kids. They don't talk to the people. They don't engage. You guys have engaged from the time that you got here. And like I shared with you at the top of this conversation, there was no reason to be scared of going into that environment because we knew we were going to save lives. And once you start to save somebody's life and you start to show them the value of their worth and what they mean to the world, there's a whole different, the spirit changes. It's no longer an adversarial spirit of, you don't like me or it's us against them, because the reason why they form the gangs is really for survival and is really to have a voice. That's why they really formed the gangs, because when the gang leaders met with us, they said to us, well, you know what we really need? We need a bunch of wheelbarrows and brooms. I said, wheelbarrows and brooms? Okay. I said, yeah, we want to clean up our community. If we had that, we'd be in order. We just really want to clean up our community. We need education. We need our kids to be fed and we need to be cared for. Nobody cares for us. And that's what we heard, right? And that's what they told us and that's what we experienced. So that was our work in 2019. 2020, we couldn't go in like I stated. And then in 2021, the president gets murdered. Wow. Where do we go from here? President of the country is murdered. So now I'm saying to myself, we usually go in with a team of security. And I said, well, our security is clearly a joke at this point. And I don't mean, I don't mean to make a joke out of this, but I'm saying if you can murder the president, you can take anybody out. So now we all have to reflect and sit back and say, what do we do now? Well, let me tell you something. Haiti has a long history, and it is the first free, independent Black nation in the Western Hemisphere. Gained its independence in 1804. We are not in a worse state than they were when they got their independence in 1804. They never gave up, and that's why they always call the people of Haiti resilient. That's why they always call the people of Haiti survivors. That's why they say they're a strong people, because they've never given up. So no matter what we're faced with, when we look at the Russia-Ukraine situation, when we look at the pandemic here in the United States, when we look at all the adversity we've had to deal with January 6th and so forth and so on, we understand that, where there's a will, there's a way. And we can't give up. We just have to trek along and find a new strategy as to how to succeed, how to survive. And there is a different approach that we have to take now in providing the assistance and help. And luckily, after 12 years, we did form a team on the ground. So when after the president was assassinated, then there was an earthquake that hit Haiti. So Haiti's been plagued with natural disaster, political turmoil, but we've established an infrastructure on the ground that was able to allow us to continue the work that we did. So once the earthquake took place, we were able to send our team of doctors and nurses into the community where the earthquake happened, and they were able to assess, help, address hundreds of people that were in need and still continue the care that we needed to provide. As if that wasn't enough, then we have a migrant situation at the border in Mexico. Extremely devastating. People are leaving Haiti, left Haiti in 2010, decided to go to Latin America and try to create a life out there. Life wasn't stable there, lives were threatened. Now there's the use of technology, and WhatsApp says, the border's open, let's all go to the United States, literally. And that's how you see 20,000 people at the border trying to get over. Now we're saying something has to be done there. Well, not only does something have to be done from US foreign policy to immigration policy, immigration reform, there's a lot that has to happen there. But really, there has to be an education, and there has to be a rejuvenation of the Haitian people for them to understand their value, right? And this has a lot of themes to it, because it has a theme of, there's a theme of inequality, there's a theme of inequity, when all the things that I've been talking about this morning, which is the value, understanding your worth, understanding who you are, and the respect that people ought to have for one another. See, when people sit in Haiti and they think about themselves, they don't think that there's any value in the country that they live in. Yet everybody else around the world understands the value of Haiti. They understand the natural resources that exist in Haiti. They understand how you can cultivate the land and make it successful and make it work. The people of Haiti think that, well, we need to get outside of Haiti to be successful. And that's not necessarily true, but that's going to take years of rebuilding and re-educating and reframing the thought of mind so that people understand the value of third world countries, the value of a country like Haiti, and understanding, no, you have the value, the worth, the ability to do whatever you desire, but it just has to, we have to act on it, and we got to speak life into the situation. And I know it's not that simple, but really that has to take place, because when the people of the country speak negatively about where they're at, and you notice this in the work that you do, people will speak negatively about themselves and be their own worst nightmare. They can't make any progress because they don't see the value in who they are, right? And that's what we have to change. And once that changes, we will start to see the migration start to stop. The education will then change. The infrastructure will then change. People will value their government. They'll value their community. They'll value their culture. And they will fall in love again with their country. And people outside of the country will also fall in love with it, because that's why, I'm an ambassador for change, and I'm an ambassador to really speak about the beauty of Haiti. Because what I showed you today was just the work that we do, right? There are other videos and there's other work that we do, because when we go there, we not only show you the devastation, but we show you the beauty, because there's a lot of beauty, there's a lot of value that exists within Haiti. And to end with the current situation where we're at, I want to leave with a point that I think really needs to be addressed, because after you've heard all that you've heard, you can only imagine what the effects of that is, right? We have been helping a lot of the migrants in relocating them and providing them with stipends or legal assistance and so forth and so on to really help their children. Because what's happened is at the border, a lot of kids lose their family along that trek because they're traveling through a forest. So they're traveling, in some cases, they're traveling from Colombia, Chile, Panama, through the rivers, and then they get to Mexico, and then a lot of them don't even make it through that forest. They die along the way, or they get murdered, or they get raped, or something happens. So it's traumatic. Where do we end up now? Well, now we have a major post-traumatic stress syndrome that happens, a post-traumatic, serious mental health issue. And on the island, you have a mental health issue. Here you have a mental health issue. And the people even doing the work have a mental health issue and need the necessary counseling that needs to take place. And it's something that's often never addressed. It's usually the big elephant in the room, because coming from a country like Haiti, there's always these other beliefs that other things are happening, right? From religious beliefs to cultural beliefs that, oh, it's not a mental health issue, there are other things happening. But mental health is a big issue, and it's something that we should all address. And we should make sure that not only in the work that we do, we're getting the support that we need to rejuvenate ourselves, but the people are also getting the support that they need. And that's going to be a huge part to not only rebuilding Haiti, but helping all those who are coming here create a path to success and survival in their lives. And I truly believe that if we speak life over our situations, we can change anything that we are plagued with and that we're challenged with. I want to thank you this morning for listening to me and taking the time out to really hear the plight of Haiti, the work that has to continue, because this is not a race, this is a marathon. So we have to keep that in mind. And back in 2010, I remember people saying to me, well, "When do you think this will you'll fix Haiti?" I said, well, short answer is, it took the United States over 10 years to build up the towers, right? In a third world country that was considered the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, we're going to have to pass it on for generations to make sure that generationally we start to build wealth and legacy, and that people keep the fire burning and understand that we can't give up, because our ancestors didn't give up and we shouldn't give up today. And neither should you in all the work that you do, because the work that you do sometimes seems endless, but you just can't give up. You just got to pass on the baton. So again, thank you. And at this time, I'll open the floor up to questions, and we'll go from there. But thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much. There are a few questions in the chat, so I think maybe I'll start with some of that, and then others can just unmute themselves and ask. One of the questions was, how do social workers in the United States get involved in international efforts, and what would you suggest of how our students could actually get involved internationally in Haiti or otherwise?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I've often engaged Rutgers University, and I keep mentioning Rutgers because Dr. Marcellus is at Rutgers, and we've always engaged the students to participate in our mission trips. We actually do a spring break trip to Haiti. We were doing a spring break trip to Haiti, so we're waiting to kind of assess the situation and see if we can go back. This upcoming summer, we're actually planning to go to DR, to go to the border and actually help the Haitian migrants that are at the border in Dominican Republic. And for those that don't know, I think most people do know, but many people don't know, Haiti and Dominican Republic are on the same island. So, and it's bizarre because people say to yourself, well, nothing happens in DR. How come everything happens in Haiti? That's why people don't know it's on the same island, right? And it's usually a 7-day mission trip. I saw somebody ask me that question. It's usually a 7-day mission trip. When we go in, we do a triage, we do a medical assessment, and we also, depending on the group that signs up, a lot of groups come up with different themes and what they want to accomplish. Sometimes it's art therapy along with the medical mission. Sometimes it's sports, sometimes it's mental health, sometimes it's, it may be a medical triage that does the holistic health, along with, in some cases, if you have a team of doctors that specialize in other things, you'll do the other specialties like dentistry or things of that nature. But we are looking to go back this upcoming summer 2020. So if everything works out, we'll be going to DR to continue our work for the Haitian people who are challenged.
All right, well, maybe you can give me some information about how students might contact you if they're interested in that trip.
Sure, they can go on to our website, www.nj4haiti.org, nj4haiti.org, and see all the great work that we do. And also you can sign up for the mission trip. All that information will be there. You can read a lot of the stories, a lot of the blogs, a lot of advocacy work that we do here in the United States. And we join you for our fundraising. We ask you to join us for our fundraising efforts, as well as, anything we may be doing here on the ground, because there's a lot of work coming up that's going to be happening here in the U.S. because of the hundreds of thousands of people who are here in the U.S. who have migrated from Central America and Haiti, as you just witnessed, that happened a couple months ago, and it's still happening.
So another question, and I'm sort of paraphrasing. You talked a little bit about the mental health needs, clearly, of people of Haiti, people who are working. How do you personally set boundaries and do self-care? And how do you encourage those who work with you to do the same?
So just for beginners, when we go to Haiti, just to start off there, we always, we never do the work and not debrief. We always make sure that we debrief, and we do counseling sessions at night. So we really have a roundtable and really talk about the experience of what we just experienced. Oftentimes people who go with us are traumatized, and we really got to counsel them and bring them back or really work with them to prepare them. But, we prepare you before you go. But when you actually see the impact of the work that you're doing, or, I think the impact of the work that you do soothes the soul and eases the spirit. For me personally, it's a spiritual journey. So prayer for me is my ultimate counselor. But I do seek counseling. I do have counselors that I talk to, and that I have mentors, but I can't do it without counseling. This is not, I don't advise anybody to do this work and not talk to somebody, because your head will explode. So you got to really debrief and get the. I think just like we see a doctor, you got to see a mental health professional regularly in your life for the everyday life that we deal with here. So let alone that work. I see a hand up.
Yeah, Heather Lee, I think, has a hand up. Heather, you can unmute yourself and just ask your question. I thought it was up. All right, well, Nancy,
I got it now. I got it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't
Nancy,
unmute
you're
myself.
next.
I can't see him now. Where did he go?
Oh, me?
Yes, where are you?
Oh, where am I? I don't know.
We can see you. You can ask the question.
I just need to look at you. Okay. First of all, thank you so much. Big fan of First Republic Lounge, so thank you for all you're doing there. This presentation is so meaningful to me because my partner is Haitian, and I'm a part of the Haitian community in Central Jersey, and I so appreciate hearing you speak on this. I also think when we talk about self-care, there is so much from Haitian culture that we have to learn, that I've taken. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that, because I think it's something we don't hear much about, and sort of our,
So you said, your question was, can I talk about the self-care from a Haitian perspective?
Well, what I'm saying is you talked a lot about the beauty of Haiti. I think there's also so much beauty in Haitian culture that I've seen here in New Jersey in terms of music and dance and food and all of it. And I think we have so much to learn from that I personally have. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. So I'll segue right into that. It's very easy. So one of the reasons, in my bio, you heard that I'm the owner of First Republic Restaurant and Lounge. And that came not because I was really passionate about the restaurant business, but more so that I was passionate about really creating an image for Haiti. And we established a restaurant called First Republic Restaurant and Lounge. You can check it out. It's firstrepubliclounge.com. And that was to showcase the culture and beauty of Haiti, because one of the questions that myself and my partners, we all went to Kane University, where we have a person from Jamaica and 4 Haitian men who came together. We've been brothers for many years, and we met at the university. And we said, how can we contribute to Haiti? And one of the things, we all know if you're from Jamaica, people love Jamaican culture, right? And what made Jamaica popular? Jamaica's food, Jamaica's music, reggae music. People fell in love with Jamaican culture because of the beauty of the island and what it had to offer. And we said, well, that's interesting. Haiti has a lot to offer. It has the food, it has the art, it has the music. So we came up with First Republic Restaurant Lounge too, and our tagline is experience it here first. Because we want people to understand that Haiti is not some land out in the wilderness in the land of nowhere. Really quick, one of my partners was preparing to go with us to Haiti in 2010, and he was talking to he's an educator, he was talking to some of his coworkers. So he says, yeah, I got to figure out how many bathing suits I'm gonna pack and so forth and so on. And they said, bathing suits? Haiti got beaches. And we're like, it's in the Caribbean? Of course it got beaches, But again, this is the mindset of people not knowing what Haiti has to offer, because they hear poorest country in Western Hemisphere and they think there's nothing to Haiti, but everybody vacations in DR. So, there are some other undertones there of I guess you could talk, I talk about the inequity. We didn't talk about the racism, and I feel that's another conversation for another day, but there is the racist undertones that exist when talking about Haiti, because, there's the racial divide of, we can go to the beautiful Spanish land on the other side that is what is associated with Spain and Latin culture, but we cannot go to the African side and the Haitian culture side, because that's demonic and it's devastating, and that's so untrue, and if you learn the history and the culture, all that begins to be demystified to you, and you start to see the goodness of that land and the value of that land. Because what people don't know is that when Haiti gained its independence, France went broke because it provided more money and more resources to the French than the 13 colonies did to the British, at the time. So anyway, but that was it in summary. I'm so sorry.
So this is where I step in, and thank you so much, Mary. Thank you so much, Stan, for that amazing
Could I just suggest real quick that those of you who have your hands up that we didn't get to address, that you put your question in the chat, and I'll make sure to get them to Stan.
I was going to suggest the same thing, and also suggest that if Stan sticks around, that he might be able to respond to some of them in the chat, and to make you this promise that we will bring you back. We need to carry this conversation forward. The theme of this symposium is democracy in crisis, and we need to explore the role of U.S. policies, foreign policies, immigration policies that have contributed to the democracy in crisis that exists in Haiti. And you were able to get it, so we need to carry this conversation further.
Thank you, Dr. Battle. And I just want to thank everybody. Big shout out to the Jamaican people. I see shout me out on the chat. And yes, Jamaica is a beautiful country. Thank you for all who support our restaurant as well. I see people have been to the restaurant, but more importantly, I'm also an elected official, and I sit on the National Haitian Elected Officials Network, which is a national network, which is NEON, and I'll put that in the chat. We're doing advocacy work and policy work in Haiti as national elected officials throughout the country to really address a lot of the issues. So I want to just thank you so much for opening your hearts, your minds, your souls to this forum this morning and being part of this symposium. So thank you for all the great work you all do. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. All right. Applause and appreciation for you. We do need to move on, and there are reasons for that, but we want to allow our colleague, Terry Clem, who will come now and moderate the session. This is our call to action, and Elizabeth Lawrence and Monica Soto are standing ready to come and to extend that call.
Hi, everyone. I'm Terry Clem. I'm the BSW Program Director at Centenary, And I so appreciate being in the company of social work students and educators and advocates and activists. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say how grateful I am to have spent the day in this conversation. And, we're talking about democracy in crisis. I'm sure that, all of us are inspired to look for, what's our place, in what ways can we step up and show up. It can be overwhelming, as many people have, recognized in the discussions. And one of the things that keeps me going is sort of the reminder that today's history is not yet written, right? So what we do next matters. And so I'm really excited to moderate this next piece, which is a call to action. And I'll just briefly introduce the speakers. I understand that they will more than speak for themselves. So I'm looking forward to Elizabeth Lawrence, who is a graduate of the Columbia University School of Social Work, where she earned her degree in International Social Welfare and Policy. Previously, she was the Director of Constituent Services and Deputy Chief of Staff for Assemblyman and Policy Chair Gary Scher. I apologize if I've mispronounced his name. He's in the 36th Legislative District of New Jersey. Elizabeth is the Director of the Office of Constituent Relations in the Office of Governor Phil Murphy. And Monica Soto, who is a graduate of Seton Hall University, where she earned her bachelor's and master's degree in social work. Monica currently serves as the Grassroots Advocacy Manager for the March of Dimes. So feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat, and I look forward to their presentation. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? I feel like it's weird talking to muted screens, and I definitely miss being in person. I see some waves from my fellow pirates. It's great to be here. I see so many familiar faces, and I can't find Liz. So because
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, I see you. Oh, I don't see you, Liz, but I hear you.
I'm so sorry. I was having computer difficulties this morning, and I think my camera has not caught up. So I can see you. I can see all of you. I'm so sorry, and hopefully this will get sorted out before the end so you can see me. I promise I'm here.
No worries. But so thank you so much, Dr. Battle, Professor Langio, who was my very own professor at Seton Hall, for allowing us to be here. A little bit about myself. I just a few years ago was in your shoes as a student. I graduated from Seton Hall with my BSW in 2020, right in the midst of the pandemic. So we worked so hard on our posters, and then like one of the symposiums were canceled. And then I went to Columbia University and got my MSW, where I concentrated in policy. And that I graduated in 2021. So just coming up on a year now. And since then, I started off as the Grassroots Advocacy Manager at March of Dimes. And currently I transitioned to a Justice Ambassador Program Manager role with Prison Fellowship, which is essentially a nonprofit that serves the incarcerated population, as well as their families, formerly incarcerated individuals, and just advocates that are looking to advance justice that reforms. And Liz, I don't know if you want to go ahead. I can't see you, but we can hear you. If you want to give a little introduction about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm also so excited to be here. Obviously, wish I was in person so you could see me as I can see you. But a little bit about myself. I did not get my undergraduate in social work. I actually went a different route, which was in writing, which has been a total benefit in my current position. And I did end up going to social work school at the Columbia University School of Social Work, like Monica. I graduated in 2010, and I bopped around a little bit trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my social work degree. I always knew I wanted to work in government, but I didn't realize that there was opportunities outside of doing research. And so when I found the area of constituent services, it really spoke very deeply to what I wanted to do, which was to work in government, but also help people and be on the front lines working with people face to face. Eventually, I did find my position at Assemblyman Gary Scher's office. You said that correct, in the 36th legislative district, representing parts of Passaic and Bergen County. I was doing that for 5 years, pre-COVID and during COVID. And just a couple of months ago, I was given the honor to be the director of the Office of Constituent Relations at Governor Murphy's office in the front office. And so I've been doing that since October, and it has been a really interesting experience to go from a legislative office to the governor's office. I can speak more about that later, or one-on-one if anyone wants to reach out to me to talk about that. And Monica was my intern. She came to me as an undergraduate intern, and she interned at Assemblyman Scher's office, and we had a great time working together. And I've just kept her on speed dial ever since.
And so, yeah, I'll go right into that point. I guess I forgot to mention why we even are doing this together is because Liz is I still consider her like a supervisor because I still reach out to her so often. But she was my supervisor when I was in Assemblyman Gary Scher's office, which was a great experience. And that kind of transitions into like the first point that I wanna talk to you all about as students. I'm gonna speak directly to the students here. And just for the sake of time, Dr. Battle, if you can just send me a note or drop in the chat what time we need to finish so I can keep track. But the first thing I wanna say is when you are in, your BSW program, for those of you that are continuing on to an MSW program, or whether you're in an MSW program now, you really have to take control of your education, right? Like your learning experience should really be all about what's gonna help you to develop into the best professional you can be when you enter the field. So when I was at Seton Hall University, and I see Dr. Apgar is here, I actually approached her and we kind of were just talking about my goals, like what were my career goals. Now, like most of you can probably agree with me that many of the BSW programs are more clinically focused, right? Like there's not a great policy focus. And I know that's changing and they're implementing new courses in different schools, but generally social work is known as a clinical profession. And I knew that there is a lot of social work skills that could also be beneficial to me in the policy space. I knew that was something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to do direct practice. I didn't want to do case management. I didn't even actually want to do much community organizing per se. I wanted to be in the policy arena. And so I expressed that to Dr. Apgar, and she was overseeing the entire program at the time. So there were really no placement at the time for people who were interested in seeing what social workers do in government. There just wasn't. It's not really something that is the average student that is going to a BSW program is seeking, although there are many. Some students don't even know that's a possibility, which is why they probably study like political science, public policy, or whatever the case may be. And needless to say, that summer, Dr. Apgar met Liz somewhere. I think it was a conference. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
It was, yeah.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, we were sitting next to each other.
So, and she essentially recruited that position for me. She's like, I have a student, she really is interested in being in a government space. Would you take her? And I don't know what the details of the conversation were, but I ended up going for like a brief interview where I met Liz, and essentially she allowed me to come on board. And I did my senior year placement with Liz as my supervisor, but Liz really allowed me to take control of my experience. So I just want to tell you all, take control of your experience so that you maximize what it is that you're learning and how that's going to transpire into your professional careers. it's better
Can I jump
to.
in real quick?
Oh
I
no,
just,
go ahead, Liz.
I'm going to just go back a little bit in time. So when I found my job at the Assemblyman's office, I didn't even understand what constituent services was. Like I said, I thought that social workers' only opportunities in working in policy or in government was doing research, was doing data, SPSS. I don't even know if you're still using that now, but back in the 2010, we did a lot of SPSS and data collection and questionnaires and things like that. And I did not want to be in the research field. I wanted to do more direct service, but in the government policy arena. So when I got the job at the Assemblyman's office, one of the first things I wanted to do was to create an opportunity for interns, because this would be the kind of internship that I would have loved to have. And I am a firm believer, and I say this to all the interns that come in, I see a couple of them are on here, is that what you put in is what you get out of it. You're adults, you are going to have classes that are outside the scope of what we are doing in the office, but everything that you are learning can be used in the office to help the constituents in a different capacity. And we've had interns that wrote legislation that eventually got passed. We've had interns that have gone on to graduate school. Like we've had, and we've also had interns that it was not the right fit for them and they decided to go in other areas, which is totally fine too. But the idea was that you come in and you get out of it what you put in. And then when Monica came in, we had already had, I think, a couple of interns, and we had really, I feel like, given a full idea of what a legislative office looks like when it outreach, legislation, and constituent services.
Yeah, so, I encourage you all to meet with your leadership, whoever that may be at your respective school. Talk to them about your career goals. Most of the times they have connections and they want to help you. Well, at least I know at Seton Hall, they wanted to help me. I don't know about any other program, but I will assume that,
They do.
Okay. They really do.
Schools have been great.
Yeah, so they really do care. And, but you have to be proactive, right? Like you have to set up those meetings. You have to make sure that you're voicing what you want to get out of your education, because for most of us, we're paying a lot of money to be there. So I just really want you to maximize your opportunity and just pretty much take control of what you want to get out of your experience during your time as a student. It's a very valuable experience. And that kind of goes into my next point of maximizing also your field placement. When you're there, I know as a student, from my perspective, it sometimes can feel like a lot, even at the MSW level. You're doing a lot of work and essentially you're full-time staff without being paid, right? Like if we're just being transparent. And sometimes that can be a little discouraging, but when you really focus on soaking in the network and the skills and what you're learning in that moment, it really has the potential to change the trajectory of your career. Like anytime there's a job opening, Liz will really call me and say, hey, I have this. Why? Because I built that relationship with her. Not only with her, also with the assemblyman that I was interning for. And she knows my work ethic, So if you find someone in the place of your field placements that you feel could potentially lead you to a career, don't be afraid to keep those connections and just keep in touch, because Liz sometimes will reach out to me and it's such a blessing. Like sometimes I'll feel lost and she has opportunities that she just connects me to just off the strength that I was one of her supervisees. And I just did a great job. I think I did a great job, Liz.
You did a phenomenal job. We've been very lucky. We've had, social workers are the best, right? You always bring your A game. You're always willing to jump in and get your hands dirty. We've only had outstanding social work interns in our office that I've been involved with. But one of the most important things is, yes, it's an opportunity to network and to make connections. But one of the things I would always talk to my interns about is that I wanted to leave their time at our office with a product to show to job interviews, whether it's a paper, whether it's some legislation you've written on, anything like that. Because when you go on these job interviews, they're going to want to, being a strong writer is one of the most important things that you're going to be able to take with you, especially in the arena of policy and advocacy and government. We need strong writers. And who is better to give voice to the voiceless than social workers? That's what we are trained to do. We are to help give people the opportunity to create their own narrative, to take control, and so we can help them. And sometimes it's really hard to do when you are stuck in the middle of a bunch of really important crises. And so what I focused on with our interns is to make sure that you have a product. So when you leave our office, you can bring it to job interviews. This is what I did. Here's the draft that I wrote. Here's the paper that I wrote. Here's the letter that I wrote. Here's just so you can bring it into any of your interviews to show them the important work that you did when you were on the front lines.
Yeah, and so I guess that brings me into my next point, and that is taking up space in the spaces where social workers typically aren't, and that is policy spaces, political spaces, and so forth. Like, I'll have conversations with certain people, like the assemblyman looped me into all of his important meetings, which I was so grateful for. I was sitting in rooms with very, very high profile people, essentially, as a BSW intern. And then I got a placement on the Hill at Columbia. So there were a lot of times when I was in spaces that typically most people feel intimidated, right? With our background, but I'm here to empower you all to really know that every single thing you've learned through your BSW career, and if you're continuing on to your MSW, it is all so useful, and you provide such a unique perspective that is so needed in these spaces, but you have to take up that space. Because if you sit there and don't talk the entire meeting, they will not ask for your input. And sometimes people were shocked. They'll be like, well, what did you study? And I said, well, I have my MSW. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I do. And that's why I can talk to you, right? Like, we have very strong people skills, and we have very strong analytical skills. And essentially we have the power to be in these spaces and be advocates, right? For the people who can't get in these spaces. So I think it's very important that when you are advocating, or just whether it be a letter to your lawmaker advocating for a certain bill that has the potential to affect the communities or the clients or whatever population you're working with, you need to take up that space because you deserve to be there, you are qualified to be there, and you have all the knowledge and skills necessary to be there. But you have to believe that first.
And I want to say, as someone who was a student and then a supervisor myself, is that I was inspired by my own interns, because when I was an intern, I did not have the, chutzpah, self-esteem, whatever I needed to go to my supervisors to ask for a seat at the table. I felt that if they didn't offer it to me, then I was just going to sit in the background and do the work that they were given to me. But my interns were the ones who would knock on my door and say, here's my idea, here's what I want to do, can I do this? And I was absolutely, because sometimes as a supervisor, not only am I supervising, but I have a full-time job that I'm trying to do as well with some of the most challenging cases. So knock on the door, go talk to your supervisor. If they're not giving you the time, go and take the time. They signed up to help you. So if they're not giving you the help and the attention you need, go and take it, request it from them nicely, but take it. That's what they're there for. That's what they signed up for. And I wish I had done that when I was an intern.
And so I don't want to assume that everyone on the call here is interested in policy level social work, right? Like, I know a lot of, I see, you are? Okay, good, I'm glad. But I'm not going to assume that everyone here is interested, like myself, in being in policy and these spaces. And I did want to make sure to talk about that because that's my passion. And that's probably why Dr. Battle and Professor Langio even invited me to be here. But for all of you who are in direct practice, anyone who's interested in clinical social work, in case management work, or so forth, there is also a space in which you need to be involved. And that space is through advocacy. There are so many nonprofits, so many community organizations that literally need direct practitioners and community organizers who are working with populations that legislation is being spoken about that will affect these people. They need people to go and give testimony. They need people to send letters to their lawmakers to basically hold them accountable to either vote in favor of or in opposition of any bill that's going to affect their own client or client population. So, you know, there's no reason that if you're a clinician, you're not also involved. Like, I'm going to challenge you as well to be an advocate as well, because essentially, if you are just doing direct practice and your work stops there and you're not taking a step further to really be engaged in the laws that are directly affecting these people, then essentially you're doing them a disservice. And it's very easy to just show up. And if you don't have the time to show up to enroll, I've worked, even just in the 2 organizations that I've worked with thus far, both March of Dimes and Prison Fellowship have a Justice Advocate Network. Well, you will literally be emailed a template and you just have to sign your name on and click send, and now you're sending letters to your lawmakers. Like, there's such simple things that we can do all together as a profession, all together to really be advocates of change. And I think that's really important to know.
And I just want to also say, because a lot of us, and you know, just to go back to the previous conversation about self-care, is that a lot of us have our jobs, and then a lot of the advocacy stuff, the volunteers, the marches, the letter writing is at nights and weekends. And it's hard, especially if you have not even if you have a family, just it's hard to balance having a full-time job and then doing these things, especially if they're unpaid during your off time. So it is imperative. I mean, when I was in school, and I have no doubt that you're still learning it, to make sure you can't give if you're not taking care of yourself. So make sure that you are doing that self-care, whatever that looks like, to disconnect, to turn things off, to spend time, because you will also be doing a disservice to your clients and to the people that the communities that you care most about if you are not taking care of yourself. You can't run a car on an empty tank. So make sure that your tank is full. Do it nourishes you, whatever that looks like: prayer, meditation, walks in the wood, going with your friends to movies, whatever it is that you need to do. So when you show up on the front lines, you can really be there. So do not sacrifice your own self-care in order to do the good work. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. And then when you are nourished, you will be at 100% to fight for the things that you believe in.
Well, I also think, Liz, like, to that point, I think there is definitely, I agree 100%. I agree. I do think, though, there is space for both to be present, like, at the same time.
Absolutely.
One of the things, like, I don't know if Professor Miller is, I know Professor Miller is here. I just don't know where she is because there's way too many screens. But I took one of my favorite classes with Kristen Miller, who's a licensed clinical social worker. And the self-care practices I learned in her class, I still use, and setting boundaries, I still use in my professional career. And I think there's a lot of very useful things that we can learn even in these direct practice classes, such as setting boundaries even in your workplace. Because Liz is right, like, you do have to take care of yourself, but I know in this profession, sometimes it can get so busy that you forget to, which I understand and definitely encourage. But and just to that point, since I brought up Professor Miller, who's a clinical social worker, I also still rely heavily on her knowledge and her expertise. So I saw someone put in the chat, I think Lizette said, micro and macro social work are so intertwined. I don't even like to distinguish the two, because to me, they're like, we're one profession, right? Like, I will call her for any advice, because sometimes even working in a grassroots level, even at a manager role in a nonprofit, I still deal with people, and it's important to empower individuals, even from a policy standpoint. And I learned those things from those types of classes that I think will be very helpful for you all. So I guess now we're coming up on time, but what I will leave you all with is just take control right now as students of your education. Like, really demand what you want to see come out of your time in school, but also be willing to put the work behind it and really be willing to show up every day and put your best foot forward. Take care of yourselves, and remember to just take up the space in these spaces that so often feel like social workers are not qualified, when honestly, we're overqualified. And I'm happy to talk and connect with any students here that may just need some guidance, some advice. I was blessed to have a lot of mentors, a lot of colleagues and professors that poured into me and allowed me to, you know, grow as a professional, as a student. And I'm still a student. Like, I consider myself a student still. But yeah, so I'm happy to do that for anyone else if I can be of assistance to anyone. And Liz, thank you so much, as always, for
So
being
good to see
just
you,
a
Monica.
great supervisor and giving me so many opportunities as I started my career too, because that can be difficult. Like when you first graduate and people think that, you know, oh, you don't have much experience, but that interning experience, the internship experience, to me, that's experience. So when I go into the interviews, I'm talking about that as like my firsthand experience. They don't need to know if I got paid or didn't get paid, but that's all very valuable experience. So I encourage you all, and I wish you all the best. I'm sad I missed some of your presentations because I was working, but yeah, I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. Amazing, amazing, amazing. You know what? Obviously, this should have been longer. This whole day. When we were meeting in person, we would meet literally. It would be an all-day event. We would end somewhere around 3:30 or so, and we've packed such good speakers into this, format that we have here. That we want more. We want more. So thank you so much, Terry, for moderating this, for Monica and Elizabeth for your presentation. Amazing. That's all I'm going to say. And we appreciate you so much. So there's another part of this symposium that's in the chat. So people, please be in the chat, because the chat is alive with so many good things. The conversation is taking place there as well. But we do need to move on. And so I want to, as your host, I want to just acknowledge the fact that the New Jersey Baccalaureate Social Work Education Association has always been in partnership with the National Association of Social Workers New Jersey chapter. And for that reason, we make sure we have a space to connect the work that we're doing together. And you really need to hear what's going to follow now, because it's an answer to some of the questions that we've been asking all day long about how to be connected, how to be involved. And so I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it afterwards, but I'll tell you, Jeff Feldman, unfortunately, is not able to be here. And I'll tell you why, but I don't want to use the time to hold that conversation right now. We do have Christina Mina, who is one of Jeff's colleagues, who has agreed to come to speak with us. She has a hard stop because she has another event, webinar, and so that's why I needed to make sure we came through to the point where she can come now. So Christina, I know you're here with us. Thank you so much for coming to speak, and so we'll give you the open mic right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Battle. Hi, everyone. So good to see so many of you, so many familiar faces. And congratulations, Dawn, and to Rutgers, and to everyone on a very successful policy symposium. My name is Christina Mina. I'm the Director of Member Services at the New Jersey chapter of NASW. So Jeff could not be here today. I know you had that lovely slide prepared for him, but you get me today. So here I am. So I represent NASW. We are the National Association of Social Workers. New Jersey is the second, or sometimes the third largest chapter of NASW. So we're doing a lot of really awesome things. And I know that you all come from really awesome BSW programs. There's a lot of professionals on the call as well, but really NASW is your professional home. So outside of your social work programs, you have an opportunity to connect with thousands of social workers who are working in so many different areas. So, you know, your schools really focus on so many awesome things in academia and a ton of other things, but NASW really is your network to connect with other professional social workers who are also working in a bunch of different fields. We're also doing a ton of advocacy work on a lot of the really important issues, a lot of the things that you all are talking about today. And so I really encourage you all to go to our website, naswnj.org. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. I'm also tasked to talk to you all about LEAD, which is our Legislative Education and Advocacy Day, which is coming up on March 29th. I'm not great at talking and putting things in the chat as many of you are, but I will do my best to put the link in the chat. But it's a really awesome day. We always have a great lineup of speakers. A lot of the people who are on the call today are represented and are usually present. Hey, Anthony, I'm looking at you. Always good to see you. And so I really encourage you all to participate on that. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out NASW membership. Obviously, if you are not an NASW member yet, I really encourage you all to join. While you're still a student, it is only $60. Regular membership is $236. So that's obviously a deep discount. And who doesn't love a discount, right? Especially while we're students. So you definitely want to sign up for NASW. You get a ton of benefits and things that you can take advantage of. Our conference, which is coming up on May 1st and May 2nd. You know, this is usually a big party in Atlantic City at the Borgata, but obviously in the current state of affairs, we're not doing it in person, but we are doing a virtual 2-day event. And if you're an NASW member as a student, you can come and participate for free, which is amazing because you get to attend all of the programs, all of the events, and there's still opportunities for you to do some of that networking, right? Some of that networking that everybody's been talking about all day. So that information is available on our website. Let's see, what else should I mention? I think that's pretty much it, Dwayne, unless you think of anything else. I just want to say we're really excited for this next generation of social workers. We hear a lot of the things that are coming up from the schools, and I'm just really excited. So please, I'm going to put my direct information in the chat as well, so you can reach out to me anytime. Happy to connect with students, happy to share more about NASW and all the awesome things that we're doing. But please consider NASW an extension of your professional, of your academic programs.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. Did I do okay getting you in and moving you towards the out on time?
Yes, you did.
Great. So
you did a great job. So thank you so much. I'm going to drop a few of those links in the chat now for LEAD and for our NASW membership, and then I will hop off.
Good, do that. And while you're doing that, I want to just take us back to 2020. The 28th of February was the last in-person policy symposium that we had. It was on, well, it's always on the last Friday in February. So it was the final Friday in February. And then just 2 weeks after that, we were at our state capitol in Trenton, New Jersey, with our LEAD Day. And on that particular day, the policy focus was on making sure that we would look after our students, in particular social work students, and seeking to have tuition remission or waive for the good work that social workers do. So always there are policy issues that are important. And I strongly encourage you, I echo what Christina has just said. In the chat, you'll get the registration for the Legislation Education Advocacy Day. Sign up for that. Also for the conference, already there are over 700 people registered for our conference. And we strongly encourage all of those who are here in the symposium, faculty, staff, field staff, et cetera, but especially students as well, for the reasons that have been mentioned. So we wanted to make sure that that you had that information. Now I want to roll back just a little bit and say a couple of things to everyone to just kind of put into perspective what I saw here today. And part of it was really demonstrated with throughout the day, but especially with the last presentation with Monica Soto and Elizabeth Lawrence, to be able to present the technology was not agreeing for whatever reason with Liz, and she just kept it moving. And even though we couldn't see her, she and Monica, it was almost like we were in a studio somewhere. Both of them were, facing each other. The energy, the chemistry was so dynamic and so wonderful. And I just want to acknowledge that. And why am I saying that? I was a student, an MSW student, and I took a class. One of my evening classes was on a day where it snowed. There was a snowstorm, and Rutgers, as you may know, would never cancel classes no matter what. And then I got to the campus that night and parked where I thought I was the first parking space I could find. Let's just be honest about it. I later found out I was parked at NJIT, but then I went to my building where my class was designated, and I'm, back in the day, they would actually have, the name of the roster and all that on the door. And I got there trudging through the snow, only to find out that it took me a while to find that building, but now there's a note telling me the class has been relocated to another building. And there was another student who was there, so we commiserated and found the other building together. I will never forget what happened. The faculty member who was teaching looked at us as we came in, and she smiled pleasantly. And we were not as pleasant, because, well, you can understand why. And we took a seat, and what she said was, Dr. Sheridan Corliss, Kingsbury, she at Dell State, she said that I've noticed the way that you all are coming into this class on tonight. And if you're having such difficulty handling, the inconveniences of, the class relocation and, and so forth, and coming into the space, how are you going to work with people who have such difficulties in their lives every day? And that kind of settled me down a bit. And so I'm acknowledging the fact that from the start of this day, and not only the start of this day, but even before this day, we've been, responding, all of us, to challenges. You did it when we went to the breakout rooms, and I'm so happy. Wherever you landed, that's where you were supposed to be. If not by our own design, by the forces that be. And so I just want to acknowledge that when we started out, I started out with, "Hey, Jetsari." And I went into and ad-libbed conversation with Jetsari, and I heard someone talking, only to find out that no, it was not Jetsari, it was Myrta, and who both of them are my field interns, and Myrta's our curriculum assistant. And so I'm having to figure out what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but we're trying to roll with it. But I found out later, I talked to Jetsari, and I'm going to tell you this, I think it's important to know. Jetsari had a medical emergency. She was in the emergency room. And the only reason I know that is because she wanted to do her poster presentation and from the ER. And Jetsari, you're in the emergency room. You don't need to do your poster presentation. Dr. Battle, I want to. And so I don't know if Jetsari did it or not, but we allowed her to go to her particular room. Our keynote speaker for today, I'm just telling you this because I think it's important for you to know, had a medical procedure yesterday, and there was a real possibility that she was not going to be able to present. So she had already planned to record her keynote address in the event that she was not going to be able to be here. So she had plan B over on the side. So I was delighted that she was able to be with us and to carry on as she did. Myrta, who filled in for Jetsari, has had both her mother and her stepfather in the hospital in medical conditions. And as I understand, Myrta was probably with her family, but is here as well today. And lastly, I'm doing all this for a reason. Jeff Feldman could not be here because his wife was put in the hospital for several days now. And so we had to figure out, another plan. And that's why Christina agreed to come in but she had, the real tight time piece. So I'm telling you that because I feel like it's important for us to know, what do you do when plans and things don't go the way that you would like? You just do the best that you can, folks, with what you have. And I see Dr. Amel Hussein, my dear friend and colleague, professor at Temple University, former, Rutgers student at multiple levels, and always committed to New Jersey, NASW, et cetera. What we're learning to do is to handle, even in this theme of this conference, democracy in crisis. Our own individual lives experience crisis, and we're experiencing, political, geopolitical, crisis right now in Europe and beyond. So I'm going to stop there and give you the final minute of comments. But before I do, I think I'm going to yield to acknowledge again publicly Mary Landriel, amazing colleague and friend, and she's getting so many shout outs from at least half of our presenters and an equal percentage of our students and all of her colleagues. So
yeah, I have to just say that I counted 13 of Seton Hall field instructors are here, which is awesome. And I also just wanted, and I put in the chat that also Stan was in an emergency school board meeting till 1:45 last night.
You see that? That's what I'm talking about. Exactly. And who would have known, right? So thank you.
We need to be creative and persistent. And here we are, walking the walk.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. And I just realized we have 14 Rutgers field instructors. I'm making it up, Mary.
I love you. Love it. No, but thank you for the professionals for showing up, and especially take the time to look at the posters. Our students would really appreciate your comments.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much. All right. So this is what you need to know as we prepare to exit, that you're going to receive a survey, an email for the survey that will happen right away. When you complete this survey, you will have a fillable PDF that you'll be able to put your name in. The certificate is already made for you. You'll be able to put your name in, print it out, save it if you choose to, on your devices, and you can share that with your faculty and keep it as a part of your own resumes and portfolios for your completion of this symposium. It's a certificate of completion. So if you just got here 5 minutes ago, let's use some professional and personal integrity, but we want you to have access. You make that choice. In addition to that, as I said at the start, we are going to have CEUs, free CEUs that are being provided, 4 of them. And Dr. Doug Behan, who's been on with us throughout the day, he is going to be the one generating the email. You will have to simply go through the several steps to get those CEUs, and it will be explained to you in the email. To all of our students, make sure you speak to your field supervisors for your field hours for this event, as well as your professors for credit, or perhaps some of this is built into some of the class. This symposium is built into some of the classes, but for others, it might be an opportunity for you to get extra credit. So please do that. They may ask you to do a reflection. I would think that would be a great thing, but whatever you do, make sure you seek that opportunity. And then again, to all of our schools and where students created posters, Rutgers will host all of the posters on our website. It should be up. All the posters should be up in several days. There will be individual YouTube videos for our students' posters, and you'll be able to put comments in the comment sections on those videos. So we know that you maybe have other students or individuals that you would have liked to have seen their posters. That opportunity will still be there for you. So please, look out for that. We'll make sure you have information as to when that's done, and all of our whole schools will be able to take those the posters from their own students and put them on your websites, as well as the fact that some of us plan to use these posters in our classes. So it'll be available, a bank of knowledge and information. Again, 56 students who did posters, 384 individuals who were registered. Up until right now, we've maintained a steady attendance of 225 to 275 people, and we're still not doing too bad with 182, and we're moving out now. So want to thank you so much. Look forward to next February, the 4th Friday in February. We will be back. We may be back before then, but we'll definitely be back then for our symposium. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.